Hi, welcome to your first of many Doodly walkthrough video tutorials. This is the video to watch if you know nothing about Doodly. The creation of this video, including the planning stage, screen recording, writing the script, recording the script, editing the audio of the recording, syncing the audio to the screen recording, and a lot more, took quite a few months. So what you'll see in this video may be a little different than the Doodly software you're currently using, but it will definitely teach you all about using the software from beginning to end. Doodly does not natively support the effect you're viewing right now. This is an advanced technique created using Doodly, green screen techniques, and Adobe Premiere. Let's begin with Doodly 101, your Doodly beginner walkthrough. This video tutorial was created with version 2.5.6, but the walkthrough will help you learn any Doodly version. It is important to note that we created and released all related chapters in separate videos. Some of the videos listed here are not created yet, so you may not see all the chapters listed on this page in the video you're watching. You may only see the dedicated Doodly chapters 1 through 9 if you're watching the segregated version. Chapter 10 for Talkia is currently a separate video on our channel. We're currently planning out chapters 11 and 12 and have added 3 additional chapters not listed on this page. Once we've recorded and edited those videos, we will combine all the chapters in one additional video in addition to the separate ones. Hi, I'm Wayne, the creator of this free video content. Nice to meet you. In just a bit, I'm going to show you content that's designed to show you 1 minute and 30 seconds of different video design techniques, try to make you laugh, all the while telling you how you can support this channel free of charge. If you're someone that feels the thousands of hours I've spent creating free content for you is not worth the 1 minute and 30 seconds of your time, simply use the chapters feature I've taken the time to create in this video and skip over it. Just move your mouse over the video timeline and click on the next chapter. For those of you that do appreciate the time I've taken, here it is, and thanks for watching. This free video tutorial took billions of light years to create. YouTube judges a channel by subscribers, likes, shares, and video hours watched. We only ask, for all our hard work, please use those buttons and let this video run until the end. Thank you. Easily support this channel free of charge. Here are some methods. Click that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. This video is monetized. Let the video run all the way to the end. The ad revenue, as little as it is, helps support this channel. Join our Facebook group. You'll find a link in the description. You'll receive group status with me and other experienced doodlers and video designers ready to help. Share these videos with other people you know and even people you don't, whether it's in the official Doodly Facebook group or somewhere else. The more people that watch and comment, the more videos I'll create. Join Production Crate through the link in our description. They have a free account and some of the best video designing effects I've found on the internet, along with tutorials, so you know how to use them and can create effects like what you'll see throughout this video series. YouTubers! Reference back to our video in your video or video description. We would be appreciative of a link back to our channel or a plug in your video showing us our hard work paid off. Let us know about it so we can return the kindness. Contact us if you want to get a little more creative and learn how to pass traffic amongst channels. Chapter 1. Opening Doodly. Immediately upon opening Doodly, we notice a lot of items. In this chapter, we're going to review menu items, membership and login information, recent videos, the Projects tab, the Templates tab, and Doodly Help. This is Chapter 1 of the Doodly Beginner Walkthrough series, Opening Doodly. The initial interface is the first screen you see when you open Doodly. Let's look at the menu items. There isn't much to this menu, so you probably won't use it a lot, but let's quickly review it. Under Doodly, we have the quit option. This will exit out of Doodly. Under Edit, we have undo and redo. Let's talk about those for a bit. Undo and redo, you'll find, don't always work as expected in Doodly, especially in the pan and zoom where they're non-existent. When you choose undo and redo, Doodly doesn't always undo or redo the expected item, so you may end up with an undesired result when using the undo and redo options. In addition, undo and redo are on a scene-based option, which means that you can only undo what's in that scene. If you switch to another scene, it's going to work on just that scene by itself. So you'll see that when you start making changes and you go, why didn't this undo or redo happen? Well, it may be because you're in a different scene. Cut, copy, and paste and select all are next. These all appear to work as expected. Under View is a full screen toggle. This is almost useless since the only thing it does is make the top bar disappear. Then that only provides a very tiny bit of space for the asset choices and a tiny bit of space for the layers section, which can be useful. So this setting may not see a lot of action. Under Window, you have Close or Minimize. Close does not close out of the project as you would expect, but instead exits out of the program, just like Doodly does with Quit. The most useful options are under the menu items in the Help section. Customer Support brings you directly to the customer service ticketing system. Community Discussions brings you to the Facebook group. Request Center brings you to the Doodly Features Request where you can vote on integrations. Some of these requests have been there for 2 years, so don't expect to get an idea and have it picked up and considered immediately. Doodly developers are well known for their lack of attention to detail when programming a request, so don't expect it to work like you imagine if your request does get chosen. Doodly support is good about responding to requests, although you may get a nonsensical response from them. Although most of the time they are very fast to respond and really helpful with basic questions. Video tutorials bring you directly to the Doodly tutorials. They are good to watch, and that's how I learned Doodly, but let's make things a bit easier for you with this Doodly walkthrough video. If you watch this video and the rest of the tutorials provided on this channel, you'll have an amazing start with Doodly and save yourself a lot of learning headaches and frustrations. Moving on to membership and login information. Directly below the menu items and off to the right, you can see your current membership level and your name. If you click on the name, you'll see two options: User Details and Logout. Clicking User Details will bring up your name and email, allow you to change your password, and show you the membership level as well as your Doodly add-ons that you've purchased. You can get back to the main screen by clicking the My Videos link. Recent Videos. This is where you create a new video and can access your last 7 videos. It is important to note that simply opening a video and not making any changes does not place a video in the recent videos section. A successful save is necessary to see the video placed in the most recent list. Tabs. There are 2 tabs in this version. The Projects tab allows you to create new folders, move existing folders, and allows for excellent organization of your doodles. In the left column, the organizational folders can be created, moved, and selected, while the right column displays what doodles are in the selected folders, along with extra information about the doodle, including creation date. Note the time is displayed in military time, modified date. This is great for knowing the date for the last time the doodle was saved. Length. This is very useful because Doodly gets extremely laggy the more scenes that are added and the longer the length of the video becomes, and has bugs that will appear with the audio signature not appearing in a portion of the doodle, or scenes getting moved around randomly. If you use the duplicate scene function, sometimes it'll triplicate and quadruplicate scenes randomly. Doodly support has reported that the bug of not showing the audio timeline if your Doodly imported audio file is over 10 minutes has been corrected. Scenes displays the number of scenes in the video. The more scenes in the video, the longer it takes the doodle to open for editing. The action column consists of open, rename, duplicate, or make a second copy of the doodle, or delete, of which are all self-explanatory. The new folder link allows us to keep our doodles organized by creating new folders. We can drag and drop our doodles into these folders. The Templates tab is next. Doodly comes with pre-made template videos that can be used for clients or other purposes. The left column allows for filtering of the templates. Choose different categories to only view templates that belong to those categories. The right column displays the templates and allows for the preview of the templates powered by Doodly, another Brightson product. Doodly is outside the scope of this training video, so we will not discuss Doodly in the first 9 chapters. Templates can be sorted by free templates or purchases made from the marketplace. Click the marketplace if you want to see more templates that can be purchased. Additionally, there is a search option to filter through the different templates. Below the tab section is a banner that serves a dual purpose: a direct link to the Doodly marketplace and another link to the Doodly knowledge base where you can create a new support ticket. You will need to create a separate login account for support tickets. If you scroll down a bit further, you'll see the Doodly toolbox. This also serves as a dual purpose. It reminds you of what add-ons you've purchased and is an excellent marketing tool by Brightson for a constant reminder about what software you haven't purchased. You are not required to purchase any of the software or the masterclass, and it will not make you a super user to purchase it, but it may save you a learning curve if you do. Or you can watch my video tutorials for free. Next up, creating a video. Creating a video. When using Doodly, there will be a lot of items that seem to be in the wrong place, especially if you're coming from a video editing background. Create a video is one of those potential misplacements. Under the recent videos, we find the Create a Video button. Let's click on that and bring up the Create a Video new window. Inside the Create a Video window that appears, we see a number of canvas styles from which to choose. Whiteboard is the most common style. This is an all-around great choice for almost any doodle and special effects. The whiteboard works best with the rainbow add-on or imported color images. Chalkboard comes in green and black and is excellent for providing that classroom feel. Chalkboards are an excellent tool for making educational doodles, but imported images will appear grainy and there are some issues with black images on a chalkboard. Chalkboard is an excellent choice to make doodles without the rainbow. Glassboard provides a really awesome looking effect by allowing the drawing hand to appear behind the screen. Please watch our Glassboard use chapter in our Common Beginner Mistakes video tutorial before deciding to use the Glassboard. The board tends to be very distracting away from your message instead of helping to enhance it. Custom has a few perks to it, such as being able to choose from a marker or chalk, choose a custom color, or an imported image as a background, and is an excellent way to get a green screen effect in Doodly. When importing an image as the background, this will set the image on every scene by importing it into the video settings as opposed to the scene settings. However, before you set an image as your background, ensure you've chosen your resolution first. The logical order in which to make the choices in this window would be to go top to bottom, left to right, but Doodly doesn't play by logical rules. If you don't set your resolution before you choose your image, the image will disappear when you change the resolution afterwards. We can change the color of a custom background. This is useful for creating a pseudo color effect in assets if you don't own the rainbow add-on. The color chooser is really user-friendly with a slide bar. Type a name in here for your title. Don't worry, you can change or update the title later if you don't like the name you've chosen. This is the constrain aspect ratio checkbox I mentioned earlier. Unchecking it will allow for custom resolutions like 1920 by 1920. That brings us to our next point, resolution. This allows you to tell Doodly what size video you want to create. I'll go into a bit of techniques when explaining this, but I'll try to keep the geek speak down to a minimum. First, you'll see the P next to 360, 480, 720, and 1080. The P stands for progressive and goes into how the video frames are created. I have not tested the output videos for frame creation to ensure they are progressive videos, but I'm not convinced that the developers for Doodly understand enough about video frame creation to know whether the P is the proper setting for the video output, because exports of some of these doodles are quite shaky, making it appear to me that they may be interlaced video being output from Doodly instead of progressive. So we're going to focus on the size of the video here instead of the technicality. As I've mentioned, there are 4 standard sizes for Doodly. Additionally, there's a Facebook and Instagram, which are 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels. For Facebook, the only area that I could find where 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels is helpful was when I wanted to leave a video attached to a comment. Everywhere else that I could find on Facebook, 1920 by 1080 works just fine. There may be areas of Facebook that require 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, and if so, feel free to correct me in the comments below. Custom resolution can be used to increase the size to support mobile phones only, or even to set the video to a 4K or 3840 pixel by 2160 pixel video. But keep in mind that Doodly only supports importing an image size at a maximum of 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels. So any images that you want to fill this canvas must be in an SVG format. Watch our Working with Images video tutorial to learn more about allowed image types and limitations in Doodly. For this demonstration, we will create a whiteboard video at 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels. Time for Chapter 3. In this chapter, we're going to review the sections My Videos, Video Title Editing, different types of membership, and we'll touch base on the user details. Let's take a look at the My Video section first. If we click the upper left-hand corner on the My Videos link, then we get the main screen that we showed you before. Time to go back into the video again so we can edit the title in the middle above the canvas. We can edit it just by clicking on it. You will not see a cursor, but you can still backspace and type in it. You must click the Save button to save the newly updated title. The user details link is on the right hand side, and this will show you your personal information, including the ability to change your password. We already went over this in detail in Chapter 1, so we won't go any further on that subject. In Chapter 4, we are going to learn about scenes, characters, props, fonts, sounds, the marketplace, and categories. Let's move forward. On the left side is the Objects or Assets section, also known as the library. You can drag things like characters out onto the canvas, but we also have scenes. If you attempt to drag a scene onto the canvas with an asset already on the canvas, an error or warning appears. Current scene is not empty. Adding this scene template will remove all existing content from the current scene. Are you sure you want to continue? You can click either cancel or OK or the X to close out. Clicking OK will erase all assets on the canvas. Let's click OK. The same rule does not apply if you want to drag an asset onto the same canvas with a scene currently in place. We can drag the asset onto the canvas and resize it to our will or work with it without interfering with the scene. We can add our own images to Doodly to make them assets for our project. If we are going to add more characters, we would click on the character section and there's a plus sign in the lower right corner. Click the plus sign and you'll get a window that pops up asking if we want to drag or drop our image onto the window or if we want to browse our computer. If you click browse, you'll be able to navigate your computer and import the image you would like to add into the character section. Name the character and click the continue button, and this will add the character into the character section and onto the canvas. With the asset now on the canvas, we can work with it. Pushing the delete key on your keyboard will remove the asset from the canvas. You will receive a warning message saying that you are about to remove the selected assets from this scene. You can add them back later by browsing the asset library. Are you sure you want to continue? There is either a cancel or OK button, or you can click the X in the upper right hand corner to cancel this window. Clicking cancel or the X will bring you back to the canvas and the asset will not be removed. Clicking OK will remove the asset from the canvas. We can right click on the asset in the character section to receive some options. It is important to note that the options are different if you right click on a Doodly provided character and a character that you have imported. Let's use a character that we just imported to take a look at the options. We can see here that we have rename, delete, share, and export. Renaming is self-explanatory. It allows us to rename the image to a better name. Delete removes the imported asset from the Doodly library. Share allows you to share the asset with someone else that also has Doodly. You will need to know their email address that they signed up with in Doodly to share it with them. Export allows you to export the image as a .das file or Doodly assets file. When you are renaming an asset file, it renames it in place. You cannot see the entire name if it's too long. But the same rules apply as if you were working in Microsoft Word or Notepad. If you want to highlight and erase the text, or shift and arrow key, or shift control arrow key to highlight if you're on a Windows computer. Command would be if you're on a Mac. When deleting an asset file from the Doodly library, you will get a different message than when removing it from the canvas. Doodly will come up and ask you if you're sure you want to delete this asset. This action is not reversible. The asset will no longer be available outside the scenes that already use it. Then you are provided again with a cancel or OK button with a gray X in the upper right hand corner to close or cancel this window. Sharing allows you to share the asset to a friend's email. You need to have a title name and email address and then click the continue button. If you try to share it to yourself, you'll receive a message that says, you cannot share the asset to yourself, you can only share to other Doodly users. If you try to share to an email address that is not in the Doodly community, you will receive a message that says, this email does not exist, you can only share it to other Doodly users. Exporting to a DAS file is very useful when you want to send assets to a person and don't know their email address. DAS files can only be used with Doodly, but you can export multiple assets that you've imported into Doodly by holding the Control or Command key down and selecting individual assets, or by clicking on the first one and then holding the Shift key down and clicking on the last one, which will highlight everything in between those two clicks. It is important to note that you cannot export Doodly provided assets even if trying to include them in the same Doodle export as an imported one. Let's find an asset that comes with Doodly. Here is Atom. If we attempt to right click on Atom, please take note that no context or right click menu appears. Now let's look at the props section. This is where we will add all the non-character assets we want to use within our doodles. We add a prop asset the same way as we add a character, by clicking the plus sign, browse to its location, double click on the image and give it a name. This will automatically place it in the canvas, and we can drag it around, resize it, and use other tools available when working with assets in Doodly. Starting in the upper left and dragging the asset using the handles on the bounding box, we can see that it does not cover the entire canvas. We can use the other handle to drag the image and make it oversized to cover the canvas. Notice the orange line indicating the image is not covering the edge of the canvas and the image is still inside the canvas, telling us that we need to increase the size of the asset if we want to cover the entire canvas. There. Let's save these changes and position the asset to a better location. Depending on the resolution and zoom your computer has, you may not be able to click on the tools above the asset. So if you want to remove the asset, you can always tap the delete key on your keyboard. You will receive a message, you're about to remove the selected assets from the scene. You can add them back later by browsing the asset library. Are you sure you want to continue? There's a cancel and OK button. Click OK and we will remove the asset from the canvas. Right-clicking on an imported asset will show you multiple options: rename, delete, share, and export. Using delete now reveals a different message. Are you sure you want to delete this asset? This action is not reversible. The asset will no longer be available outside the scenes that already use it. This, again, has a cancel or OK button. Clicking OK will remove the asset from the library. Moving on to fonts. Doodly comes with 3 fonts in this version: Patrick Hand Regular, Handley Regular, and Gochi Hand Regular. Any fonts you see in this video, I went out on the internet, researched the fonts, and decided I wanted to use those fonts for my own doodles. Make sure you read the licensing and terms of use on each font before you use it, because a lot of them are not licensed for commercial use and you need to pay a fee to use them for commercial use. Fonts have been updated in the later version of Doodly to include 35 different fonts for the standard licensing and 70 different fonts for the enterprise licensing. Keeping in mind, all the fonts included in Doodly, regardless of licensing, are sourced from free for commercial use locations around the internet. Double-clicking the text on the canvas will allow us to change the text. Font.google.com happens to be a website where you can obtain free commercial use font types. That's a little big. Let's resize with the handles on the bounding box. There, that's better. We can easily change font types in Doodly by dragging another font on top of the text on the canvas. Doodly will ask us, are you going to replace the font? And we have the options to say yes, replace, or no, add. Clicking yes, replace will change the font type for that text. There are some options that are available when clicking on the text assets on the canvas. Clicking on the gear icon above the text, we can see there are tons of options. The only 2 options I use in these settings are color and opacity. I advise not using the sound effects in this panel, as there is no ability to control the audio level and you're limited to the duration of the asset when you attach the sound effect to an asset. Instead, use an additional audio timeline for the sound effects and line them up manually. It's a little bit more work, but well worth the ability to control the audio level and let it have its own duration. The other options in these controls are moving the text asset up and down in the layers section and to delete or remove the text from the canvas. Some fonts require attribution when using them. It's a good idea to set your naming conventions to remind you when an asset needs attribution, whether it's a font, audio, or an image. Naming conventions include attribution can be something like font name, dash, ATT, or attribution information, something to the effect that'll make it easy for you to remember. Changing the font types is as easy as dragging the font on top of the text and clicking OK. It is important to note that when adding new fonts, the only time you can rename the font is either before you import it by renaming the file itself or during import. So make sure you take advantage of that if you want to have an organized and nice looking font list. Equally important is the knowledge that some TTF files have more than one style font in them, and if they do, you will not have an opportunity to rename those fonts. If you right-click on the font after it's been imported, the only thing to be seen is the delete option with no ability to share or rename. Time to check out the imported sound effects and music. There are several places to obtain free sound effects. Doodly will provide quite a few free sound effects as well and has a very reasonably priced Mega Sound Bundle. Our Doodly Frequently Asked Questions video, also included at the end of the complete version of this video, provides a lot of places to obtain free sound effects. One such place is freesoundeffects.com, which they have their free sound effects listed in the lower left corner. Unlike fonts, we can rename and delete sound effects. However, we do not have the ability to share sound effects and music. You can find a lot of audio files on the internet, but you will find some of them that require attribution. To keep out of a legal bind, it is best to remind yourself that a piece of audio or sound effect requires attribution in the description of your video production by using a naming convention of sound name attr dot attribution information. Oh, forgot to mention, we can use multiple lines when working with fonts. As soon as you use multiple lines, you will see options for alignment such as left, center, or right alignment. Text is vectorized and scalable, so it does not matter how small or big it gets because you won't lose quality. The Marketplace section is where you can see all the bundles you've purchased from the Marketplace, including both images and audio. These bundles work just like regular Doodly provided images. Drag them onto the canvas and work with them like normal. They have the same options such as move forward or send backward options for positioning the asset within the layers section. It is important to note that when this video was created, the coloring of the font was handled differently than the newest version that has come out since the video was recorded. So what I'm going to show you here is not accurate any further. I will display the correct method of coloring the font and an undocumented bug that happens within Doodly that's easy to repeat but doesn't look like it'll be fixed anytime soon. I've reported the bug to support and asked if they wanted video proof of the bug, and it was pretty much blown off and ignored. For right now, this area that I'm showing you will look a little different in the latest versions of Doodly. Check out the updated section at the end of the Doodly walkthrough portion of this video. Audio files on the Marketplace will show you if you purchase the Sound Effects Mega Bundle. Differently from images, the Marketplace, you do not drag the audio onto the canvas, otherwise you'll receive an error of you cannot drop audio files onto scenes. Please drop them to the audio timeline below. You can either click the OK button or click the gray X in the upper right hand corner of the error. Both will do the same thing, and that is close the error. Drag the audio down to the audio timeline near the bottom of Doodly, and you will see a basic audio timeline appear letting you know that it has successfully been added to the timeline. Intimately working with audio is outside the scope of this video, but we have a separate video dedicated toward working with audio within Doodly. Watch that video to learn all about working with audio within Doodly. Let's review the Categories tab. The slide out menu has different options depending on the area that's selected at the top. The categories allow for a user-friendly method of filtering out assets to use in your doodle. It is a bit limited because the categories are chosen by the Doodly developers. We will quickly overview the items in the scenes, which has two options: All and My Library. Characters has a few options to choose from: All, My Library, Business, Casual, and Trendy. Props has quite a bit of choices. We won't waste your time going through all of these choices, but we will mention the list goes below what you can see here. There's a hidden scroll bar that allows you to go below what you see on the screen. Notice Fonts doesn't have a category, while audio does offer filtering such as sound effects, music, My Library, and All. It is important to note the images category in the marketplace also scrolls past what you can see displayed on the screen. In Chapter 5, Video Settings, we will learn about canvas styles, drawing hand settings, drawing hand styles, video title editing, scene transition, erase mode, resolution options, and the rainbow add-on. There are a lot more hands that have become available during the production of this walkthrough. In the video settings, marked as settings located in the lower left corner above the timelines, we can change all the features on how this doodle is created. These are the same settings we see when creating the doodle, but it does appear a little different. We can see the different types of revealing hands with the whiteboard, dark chalkboard, green chalkboard, glassboard, and even custom. This window has changed since this video was recorded, and I'll bring that up for you now. You can see the different changes that have happened here, and we'll go over it in depth at the end of the 9 chapters of this Doodly walkthrough. There are multiple types of canvas styles available in Doodly. Each canvas style comes with its own types of hands available to reveal your material. The power of Doodly is in the revealing method of the video production. Mastering the different types of reveal methods will allow you to make professional appearing doodles. There have been 50 different revealing hands added to each canvas style. Icons have now replaced the drop-down menu for the default in scene transition. The scene transition can now be defaulted to off. Below everything, we have the enable autosave functionality. This is a good thing to enable, but it can be quite annoying because it stops every minute and lags your video to save it to the cloud, slowing down your development. We can change the hand styles from right to left, and you can see in the preview how this will appear. We have the cartoon hand for different canvas styles, but as you can see, these mainly stay the same except when you're using the whiteboard and custom. There is an additional hand available for these two styles. This still holds true with the update of more hand styles than what you see here in this recording. We will look over the new video settings appearance and updates in the update section after the walkthrough. Changing the medium that happens from marker to chalk is a nice feature to allow effects to be created and provide more realism to the doodle. We can do that for the right or left hand. Subtitles are allowed. Closed captions are not something that's offered by Doodly at this time. Subtitles are not closed captions. Subtitles are generally for people that do not speak the language. Closed captions are for people with disabilities and include sound effects when others cannot hear them. At the time of making this video, the ADA rules on closed captioning are mainly geared towards municipal and state offices and facilities, museums, libraries, schools, colleges and universities, theaters and cinemas, convention centers and arenas, train stations and airports, hotels, parks, hospitals and clinics, pharmacies, restaurants, retail stores and malls, and daycare facilities, but can potentially affect online services and products that are made publicly available. Section 508 and 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which has a specific requirement for closed captions and video content, applies to U.S. federal offices and their digital or physical services and communications, organizations that receive federal funding, universities or colleges that receive federal grants. This means if you're in the United States and do not fall under those rules, then you're probably not required to include closed captions in your video productions. The title can be changed on this screen as well. Video ends when allows you to tell Doodly that the video will stop after the animation timeline has reached the last frame, or after the audio and video timelines have reached their last frame, whichever comes last. Swipe transitions allow you to tell Doodly which direction to transition from one scene to the next. These are important, and we have a dedicated video on just scene transitions and exit animations and how to optimize them for your doodle. Quickly, we have swipe left, right, up, down, mixed, and camera panning. Watch our scene transitions video tutorial for more detailed and important information on this subject. Erase mode provides us with smart mode, with finger, with eraser, or none. Smart mode will tell Doodly to choose how to erase an asset when another asset is placed on top of it. Finger will tell Doodly to just use the finger to erase it. Eraser will always use the eraser. And none tells Doodly to not erase the underlying asset when placing one asset on top of the other. Resolution allows you to change the size in which your doodles will be rendered. Doodly Rainbow works a little weird and not how one would expect it to work. When disabling it here, it will turn all your current provided Doodly assets to black and white outlines regardless of the canvas style selected, but it will not disable the rainbow in the characters library. That must also be disabled manually. When disabling the rainbow in the video, there is a warning that appears that says, "Turning off rainbow will make all images in the video black and white instead of color. Would you like to proceed?" It's got a cancel, an OK button, and a gray X in the upper right hand corner. In version 2.6.3 and below of Doodly, turning off the rainbow will not turn your imported images into black and white, nor will it automatically disable the rainbow in the character library. As we see here, dragging another character asset onto the canvas drops it onto the canvas with color even though the Doodly rainbow is off. We can either go into the asset setting and disable rainbow from there, turn off rainbow settings in the object area or the library, and then drag the same asset without color on top of the colored asset, and then we can choose replace it, or we can delete the asset completely and drag a new one back onto the canvas. At this point, you should have an excellent feeling for everything within the video settings and be very comfortable with changing these settings. In Chapter 6, we'll talk about the timeline, including the playhead, pan and zoom, video timeline, audio timelines, and the voiceover timeline. The playhead is in the timeline area. We use this to scrub back and forth around the timeline. You won't see anything happen unless you have the show preview window open. The show preview window plays back at 30 frames per second or 30 FPS. So this is what you want to use when previewing your videos. Now when we scrub back and forth, the show preview window shows us what is happening in the timeline. The pan and zoom area is really a pan, tilt, and zoom, because you can give the appearance of going left and right, pan, or up and down, tilt, and provide the appearance of zoom in and zoom out using this feature. This is an extremely powerful feature in Doodly when mastered. There is a plus sign on the timeline just above the video timeline. This plus sign adds a pan and zoom section to the timeline. Most of the zoom in and out effects that you see in Doodly creations are used with the pan and zoom function. There are other methods of creating a zoom effect or movement in Doodly without using the pan and zoom feature. Everything is manual in the pan and zoom, and undo and redo do not work in this area, so be careful when working with this, because if you start to move and finish accidentally, you will have to move it back and line it up manually. There's no grid alignment in the pan and zoom. If you try to use undo or redo, you will undo or redo in the timeline and not in the pan and zoom window. Without unlocking the start, we can resize the ending portion of the pan and zoom section and move it around within the boxed area. We have a show preview button that allows us to see what is happening without going out of this window. This now comes with a play button that has a basic play timer. We also have start and end buttons now in the upper right hand corner. We can use this view to line up the bounding boxes by switching back and forth between start and end. This is the best method with this version I've discovered of working with pan and zoom when you want to line items up. Clicking apply will confirm the changes we've made to our doodle using the pan and zoom. Now we can scrub back and forth on the timeline and see what we've done. Or we can press play and just let it run. Be advised that too many pan and zoom sections on the timeline will cause Doodly to lag when the playhead runs past those sections and potentially crash if you don't have enough memory in your computer. If we want to resize the pan and zoom, we can click and drag the sectioned area either direction to provide a greater or shorter duration to the pan and zoom. Let's watch this for a second. We can see the zooming functionality is taking longer because I increased the length of the pan and zoom section across the timeline. We can hide the objects area or Doodly libraries and the actions or layers section to increase the size of the show preview window. This helps tremendously if you're developing on a smaller 15.4-inch laptop screen and not a 32-inch desktop monitor. Let's bring those back and talk about the different timelines below. We have the voiceover timeline. This allows you to record a voiceover directly in Doodly. This is not advised because inevitably there will be background noise, lip smacks, heavy sighs, or breathing, and many other items that a microphone picks up. Doodly doesn't have any ability to remove these items. You can use Audacity or Adobe Audition to edit the video before importing it into Doodly. If you do choose to record the voiceover within Doodly, you do have the advantage of seeing a 10 frames per second or 10 FPS preview of your video while recording. 10 FPS will make your video appear laggy and slow. Whether the voiceover is recorded inside or outside of Doodly, you will get a basic audio timeline to show you what you can see for your higher and lower points and to tell you where emphasis on words may be to use those to sync up your video to your audio. When your mouse hovers over the audio timeline, you will see the name of the audio. There is an X on the right hand side that will allow for deleting the audio from the timeline. Clicking the X will bring up a warning of "Are you sure you want to remove this audio from the music timeline?" with an OK or cancel button. We'll click OK. Let's talk a bit about the rainbow add-on and the video timeline. Let's hide this preview window so we can see a bit more. As you saw before, we turned off the rainbow add-on. This removes all colors from the Doodly provided assets. When you drag an asset onto the canvas without the rainbow add-on and then enable the add-on from the library, the color is not automatically added to the assets on the canvas. We can create different effects with the rainbow add-on enabled and disabled. Notice the more assets we add onto the canvas, the longer the video timeline extends for the scene for which we are currently selected. This is because each asset has a default of 3 seconds of duration time for appearing on the canvas. This means it'll take 3 seconds for drawing or revealing or fading the asset into the canvas. Right-clicking on the video timeline gives a context menu with different options. Sometimes that might be Command-click or Alt-click on a Mac. Clicking Insert will allow us to create another scene directly before the scene for which we are currently selected. The second option on the menu is Preview. This is not the same as the Show Preview button. This is the same as the Preview button next to the Export option, and it displays the doodle at 10 frames per second, which makes the doodle look very laggy. This is not a realistic view of the final export unless you chose 10 frames a second. As you can see, one of the main differences between the two preview options, other than the FPS, is the preview window for the button instead of the embedded viewer of the Show Preview option. Closing out of the Show Preview window, let's continue to the next option, Duplicate. Duplicating the scene allows us to make an exact duplicate of the scene directly after the scene we are duplicating. However, duplicating many scenes may have unexpected issues. There are a couple of bugs within Doodly when working with large projects. After closing out of the project and then reopening the project, you may find unexpected random scenes have been duplicated and triplicated, as well as moved to unexpected places like scene 1 or scene 4 instead, which messes up your entire project and requires manual deletion of the additional scenes and moving or copying and pasting of any of the move scenes. Keeping in mind that audio and video do not sync together, so that may misalign your audio as well. Copy does exactly what you think it does. It copies the entire scene to the clipboard. You won't see anything happen, but it did copy. After you figure out where you want to paste your copied scene, when you right-click, the paste option is now available and can be chosen from the context menu to essentially duplicate the scene where you want it rather than directly after the original scene. You can even copy and paste between projects as well. The last option is the Delete option, which will remove a scene from the video timeline. When choosing to delete, a warning message will appear asking, "Are you sure you want to delete this scene?" with a cancel and OK button. Deleting a scene is not undoable. Once a scene is gone, it will need to be recreated if desired to have it again. It's a little difficult to tell when one scene starts and the next one begins. Let's change the background color so we can see the distinction between the two scenes. We'll set it to blue. There, that's better. Moving scenes around is very simple. Left-click and hold your mouse button down on top of the scene and drag the scene where you would like it. This process gets a little more difficult when you have a lot of different scenes. When you start getting into 20 to 50 scenes, Doodly becomes extremely laggy. The audio timelines in Doodly still have a lot of bugs in them as of version 2.6.4, which is the current version as of writing this script, but not the version shown in this video. When including more than 124 audio clips on the same audio timeline, Doodly will crash during the rendering process. It's better to stagger the audio on multiple audio timelines. Also, there is a big issue when combining videos and audio together. Our research shows that Doodly takes twice as long, if not longer, to render when attempting to render both video and audio together than separately. Therefore, we recommend rendering the video and audio in separate doodles and combining these in a video editing software outside of Doodly. Doodly supports multiple audio timelines. We will show the basics of working with audio, but we have a video dedicated to working with audio in Doodly. Watch that video as it provides detailed information on this subject. Just like adding an audio track, removal of one can happen as well. When removing a track, a warning message appears asking, "Are you sure you want to remove this audio track?" with a cancel or OK button. Clicking OK will then remove the audio track from the timeline. This action is not undoable. Let's talk voiceovers. You can record a voiceover directly in Doodly or create your own MP3 file and import it into Doodly. I highly suggest using Audacity or some other program to create your voiceover, as this will provide you the opportunity to edit the voiceover before final production. After importing the voiceover into Doodly using the plus sign, it will show up in your files. Drag it onto the voiceover timeline and you have a voiceover. Hovering over the voiceover reveals an X to allow us to delete the audio track from the timeline. One such program that you've heard me mention many times already is called Audacity. Audacity is a free program that will help clean up voiceovers and other audio files that may be desired to be imported into Doodly. Oh, here is something to look out for when using Doodly. Notice I have my writing accidentally set for right to left. Uncheck the box to make it go from left to right, and choose word wrap if you want the text to not stay on a single line. Let's type that out and show you what working with multiple lines of text inside Doodly looks like and the tools that become available. We can use things like word wrap and left, center, and right alignment. For the more technical doodlers, although you can use keyboard shortcuts for bold and italics on text, they do absolutely nothing. You will see the change in the text box, but you will not see the change on the canvas other than the error of the text getting cut off by the bounding box. Changing the text back to a non-formatted style will stop the text from getting cut off by the bounding box on the canvas. Bringing a close to Chapter 6, we can see that we can move around the text on the screen and choose the different types of alignment. Choosing the gear icon will bring up other settings that can be adjusted to work with text and other assets on the canvas. Check out what unchecking word wrap does to the text. We can see the entire thing is on one line, so let's bring that back for the time being. After this chapter, you should feel more comfortable working with audio and video inside Doodly. Time to move on to Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is going to look big, but it's less than 20 minutes to learn all the items listed. We are going to learn a lot in Chapter 7, but it goes fairly quickly. We're going to learn how to work with your project files like saving, previewing, exporting your files. Exporting will include several different items such as naming your video, different file formats available to us, scary words like resolution, quality, and custom width and height. Don't let any of those words scare you. We'll take it step by step. Next up, we're going to learn about scene settings. There is a lot to learn inside here. Things like different canvas types, drawing hand settings, drawing hand styles, exit animations, subtitles, and rainbow will be taught in this section. They are very easy to grasp, but we're not done there. We follow that up with zoom functionality, incorrectly called tools in this version. Finally, we take a detailed look at the layers section and learn about delays, duration time, and auto scroll. So grab your coffee, drink, or snack, and let's show you some of these actions and provide explanations. The Save button is a green button in the upper right-hand corner of Doodly. If the Save button is gray, you cannot save the doodle. There are some issues with getting that Save button to turn green. Not all actions within Doodly will cause the Save button to turn green. There are some minor actions that can happen in Doodly that will not cause the Save button to turn green, such as checking the Snap to Grid checkbox. Most of the items that do not affect the green Save button do not directly affect your doodle. When the Save button is clicked, it will turn gray to signify that there are no additional changes that need to be saved. The blue Preview button shows a window of your doodle playing at 10 frames per second. It can appear laggy and non-responsive. This is very different from the 30 frames per second embedded video preview that is shown from clicking the Show Preview button. If we scrub back to the beginning and click the play button, we can see a more fluid video preview in comparison to the preview button. There are times the video preview from the show preview button lags severely. If this happens, pause the video, scrub back to the original starting spot, and play again. Exporting a video provides us several options. The change button has a dual purpose. It allows you to change the location of where you want to export the doodle, but also allows you to change the file name for which you want to save the doodle. Simply erase the current name, replacing it with a new one, and keeping the file extension, and click the Save button. Voila! A new name now shows up in the location area. File format allows a file export of a .mp4 file, or technically known as MPEG-4 Part 14. This stands for Moving Pictures Export Group, and is the most common file format on the internet. But what you may not be aware of is MP4 files are patented technology, mainly owned by 3 companies. Mitsubishi Electric has 255 patents, Hitachi has 206 patents, and Panasonic has 200 patents. MKV, or Matroska, is a free open standard format that has amazing compression capabilities but may not be compatible with different social media platforms or software. An OGG Vorbis compressed audio file is used for holding audio data, and it's mainly seen on Android phones or tablets. And a .webm file designed by Google uses combined VP8 video and .ogg audio technology and derived from the Matroska container for a resulting phenomenal compression and lower file size without sacrificing noticeable quality. .webm files have caught support for most of the digital browsers for viewing on websites except for Safari by Apple. They do not natively support on operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, or iOS, but they can be used to upload doodles to YouTube, but may not be compatible with direct social media uploading like Instagram. Resolution is how clear the exported video will appear on a screen if you blow it up to full screen. The correct resolution depends on your target market's medium. If you're only going after cheaper and older phones, then a lower resolution like 360p is perfectly fine because the screens have less pixels going across them. However, if you're going after people with newer phones, tablets, and computers, then 1080p is where you want to be, as there are more pixels going across those phones, and the increasing size of your doodles will make the video appear blurry on these devices. All our doodles are exported at 1920 by 1080, 60 frames per second, and 100% quality. The rendering times for that combination is insanely long with Doodly, but in our frequently asked questions, we explained how to combat lengthy rendering times in Doodly. When getting to Facebook and Instagram, this doesn't consider the IGTV of Instagram. Your doodle must be exported at 1920 by 1080 to be compatible with IGTV. Custom allows for creating even bigger doodle exports like 3840 by 2160 or 4K. Just keep in mind, the largest image that can be imported into Doodly at this time is 1920 by 1080, which means getting very creative if a full 4K background is desired unless you're using SVG files which are scalable. FPS, or frames per second, are how many frames appear in 1 second to make something. FPS is used to determine how smooth the video appears when showing motion. Doodly videos sometimes suffer from shaking. Allowing the video to cache itself by using the Show Preview button prior to exporting and then exporting at 60 frames per second may assist in minimizing the shaking if you run into it. 30 FPS and 60 FPS are the most common currently used frames per second settings. There is a quality setting here. We have completed lots of testing with this setting, and lowering the quality does not lower the file size of the exported file, nor does it make the rendering process any faster. Keep your quality at 100%. The only thing that we could find that lowering the quality does is make your doodle look bad. Constrain aspect ratio allows you to create doodles that are not standard. we must select Custom in the resolution to work with the width and height of the doodle and the Constraint Aspect Ratio checkbox. When the Constraint Aspect Ratio checkbox is selected, when we update one of the parameters, Doodly will automatically update the other. With the checkbox deselected, we are now able to make our own non-standard size. Clicking Continue will export the file to your computer. Scene settings provide the ability to adjust each scene independently from the rest of the doodle. We can perform a lot of the same functionality as the video settings. The checkbox in the upper left tells Doodly whether to use the default settings or use the settings within the scene. Unchecking this box will allow editing of the scene's settings. We can change the canvas style and have the ability to use whiteboard, dark chalkboard, green chalkboard, glassboard, and custom, which can host a custom color or image background. There's a lot that's changed in the latest version of Doodly, and the exit animations are one of them. The older version, like what is shown here, shows a drop-down menu. This is changed to an icon button layout. The exit animation remains the same, however, including none, swipe left, swipe right, swipe up, swipe down, and erase. We have a dedicated video tutorial all about exit animations and scene transitions. Watch that video for more detailed information about this subject. Extra time at the end is really additional end of scene time. This allows for more time to be added before transitioning to the next scene with minimal allowed time of 1/2 second. There is a dedicated end of scene time chapter explaining the importance of this subject in detail in our scene transitions video tutorial. Subtitles allows you to create subtitles for that scene. Subtitles are not closed captions. A subtitle is a static sentence on the scene that does not move. Closed captions are the words on the screen that allow change to indicate when noise is happening, like people clapping or music playing. There is no method of adjusting the placement of the subtitles. If you find the placement of your subtitles in the middle of your doodle after exporting your project, check the resolution size in your video settings to ensure that it matches your exported resolution. As with all text within Doodly, in this version and up until version 2.6.8, Doodly still does not have a spell check, so use Microsoft Word or Google Docs to ensure spelling and grammar are correct before placing it into Doodly. Time to discuss the playhead. We can move our cursor over the top of the playhead and then click and hold our left mouse button down. This will allow us to drag the playhead around the timeline, and if we have the show preview window open, we can see what is happening in real time as the playhead moves over the timeline. Speaking of the show preview embedded viewing window, we can increase and decrease the size of the window by opening and closing the Objects Library and the Actions Area section. On a smaller screen, it will make it easier to see the doodle to make changes when the show preview window is increased in size. For all intents and purposes, the term objects and assets are used synonymously in Doodly. They are essentially the same thing without going into minute detail. If we need to increase or decrease the size of the canvas, we can use the zoom functionality, improperly labeled as tools. Dragging layers serves two purposes. Doodly draws these items top to bottom, paying attention to the delay and the duration settings. The bottom layer is also the top layer on the canvas. This can tend to get a little confusing since the top layer is the first one to be drawn, but also the bottom layer on the canvas, and vice versa when you're talking about the bottom layer in the layer section or the top layer on the canvas. We can delete an asset by selecting it and clicking the garbage can. By default, Doodly is set to stop when the video timeline stops. This setting can be set to stop when both the video timeline and the audio timeline stops. We can see here that the audio timeline goes way beyond the video timeline. Let's see what it takes to shorten that audio file. This process is rather tedious. There is no crop tool in Doodly. This means scrolling all the way to the end of the song, aligning your cursor up exactly over a very small line, clicking the left mouse button down and holding it and dragging it off the screen, and then performing this action repeatedly until you get the audio length where you want it. There is no snap function or zoom function on the timeline to align the audio, so you need to manually eye the alignment using the needle of the playhead. Additionally, shortening an audio file does not make the exported file size any smaller. The entire full-size audio file is exported even if you shrink it back to a portion. After the audio length is resized, you can do quite a bit with the audio file, such as fade in or fade out the audio, duplicate a track, or even delete a track, all completed with a right click. We can add multiple audio tracks, so we can drag the audio file down to the next audio timeline. The trick I'm showing you here is how to properly fade in and out an audio to make a smooth transition of the music when needing to continue the music without it stopping. We have an entire video dedicated to working with MP3 audio files in Doodly. Watch that video for more detailed information on what to do in Doodly. Let's take a little deeper look at the layers section. We'll close the show preview for right now and drag some assets onto the canvas. The assets I'm using are part of the Enterprise package. Anything you see with a green shield means that I've paid more money for the Enterprise membership to have the additional characters. There. That's enough assets on the canvas. Look at the layers section on the right hand side of the window. There's a tiny scroll bar over here. Doodly developers love their tiny, frustrating scroll bars that you can barely click on with your mouse. There are three main areas to work with to keep your doodle at a realistic speed, two of which we will speak about in the layer section. Number 1, delay. This will allow you to enter an amount of time to pause before the next asset is revealed from the canvas. I find 1/2 second delay works great in between asset drawings, but you may desire more depending on the project. Number 2, duration. This is the amount of time it takes for Doodly to reveal that asset on the canvas. This setting will change drastically depending on if the hand is being utilized for the reveal, if it is a text or image asset, if the reveal mode is set to fade instead of draw. If using the hand to reveal, smaller image assets can be revealed with less duration to provide the realism effect, whilst larger image assets can take more time to reveal. Fading looks good within anywhere from 1.5 seconds to 2.5 seconds. A good rule of thumb for text assets is 0.3 seconds per 4 to 5 character word. That would increase with larger character length words and decrease with smaller character length words. Doodly is excellent about automatically setting a believable time for drawing text assets as you increase the text. We're going to give these assets random duration times. Replacing an asset on the canvas is simple. Drag the asset from the objects library and drop it onto another asset on the canvas. A message will appear. Are you going to replace the image with a no, add, or a yes, replace? Choose yes, replace to remove the old asset and add a new one in its place, or no, add to add the new asset without removing the old one. Let's add a bunch more assets on the canvas. I would like to show you how to auto scroll in the layers section in Doodly. Doodly does not have the ability to number your layers, or to drag more than one layer at a time, even though you can highlight more than one layer at a time. This means dragging and dropping a lot of layers manually, so learning to auto scroll when you have a lot of layers is essential, especially since you can only see 3 1/4 layers at a time on a smaller screen. Auto scrolling has been made a bunch easier since other doodlers and I complained about the design, and I submitted a new design idea showing where a few of the faults within Doodly UI were located. If I knew they were going to accept my idea, I would have submitted a complete redesign of the UI. To auto scroll, simply drag the desired layer to the top or bottom of the layers section to automatically scroll through the layers. You can see as I drag the layer past each other layer, when I set it down, the assets on the canvas change their placements. Remember, the top object in the layers section gets revealed first, but will be shown behind everything on the canvas, essentially making it the bottom layer of the assets on the canvas. And the bottom object in the layers section gets revealed last, but it's on top of everything on the canvas, essentially making it the top of the assets on the canvas. Chapter 7 wasn't as long as it seemed. We learned a lot in a short amount of time. Ready for the next shorter chapter? In Chapter 8, we discussed tools when working with the canvas. The plan was to talk about showing and hiding the preview in this chapter. We've already spoken about that in detail in Chapter 7, so we're going to skip past that in Chapter 8. We will focus solely on working with grid lines. There are multiple ways to line up assets in Doodly, but the easiest method is using the grid. One of the items that is not shown here but in the newest version of 2.5.6 is the Snap to Grid feature. It's a checkbox that's located to the left of the Show to Grid button. When clicking Show Grid, we can see there are lines behind the assets that will allow us to line them up. Keep in mind that if you decide to use an asset as a background image because you want to see the glass board effect behind the image, this will render the grid useless, as you will not be able to see it, just like you cannot see the grid behind the assets on the canvas now. We can move the assets to align them to the grid lines. You know what? There are way too many assets on the canvas. Let's delete some of these. By holding down the Control key or the Command key on a Mac and clicking each of the assets on the Layers section, we can highlight multiple layers. Now, go up and click the garbage can, and Doodly will provide a message that says, "You are about to remove the selected assets from the scene. You can add them back again later by browsing the asset library. Are you sure you want to continue?" with a cancel or OK button. Clicking cancel will leave the assets on the canvas, whereas clicking OK will remove the assets from the canvas. There are still way too many assets on the canvas. Let's highlight some more of these, but this time we'll push the delete key on the keyboard. Using the delete key, we receive the same message. Clicking OK? Good, that's better. The Snap to Grid checkbox that you don't see in this version will automatically snap the assets to each of the grid lines, making lining up assets a breeze. For right now, this video will show you the manual process. Save yourselves the frustration and use the Snap to Grid checkbox that will be available in your version. Enabling full screen will provide a tiny bit more room on the canvas. Let's line these up and resize the canvas, and there, we have everything set up. Keeping in mind that just because an asset is off the canvas doesn't stop Doodly from showing the hand drawing outside the canvas, so try to prevent these types of design flaws and use masking and editing techniques instead. Time for Chapter 9. Chapter 9, Asset Settings. We're going to learn all about Doodly basics, sound effects, specifically asset attachments. This is the last chapter in the Doodly walkthrough that we show you before we show you the updates that have happened in Doodly post-recording this walkthrough. Clicking on an asset reveals several options above the asset. The first one is Edit. Clicking on the edit icon will open the asset editing options. We see a full picture of the asset. Everything in this window relates to how Doodly should reveal the image. Most of the items here are about creating paths for the reveal of your doodle. It takes a bit of getting used to, but this section right here is the power of Doodly. This section right here is what makes those awesome reveals. Let's click Return Without Saving and show you an imported image with pathways already created. In the Props Library section, we can click the Categories tab and choose My Library to filter out all the Doodly provided images. Let's scroll down until, yes, there's the eye GIF animation. I added a couple of paths to that one already. Perfect. Looking at the Reveal Path section, we see I created 2 paths. Each path created tells Doodly to lift the hand before starting the new path, just like an artist would when they start drawing in a new area. Clicking on each path will reveal which path points that are under that path by turning them into blue dots on the canvas. The path size determines how big each path will be when the reveal happens. Too big or small of reveal paths and the realism will be lost. Find the happy medium. The Tools section allows you to select and move and add or delete path points. If we want to move one of the path points, we can do that with the Move tool. Each point tells the reveal hand where to stop when revealing the image on the canvas. Let's lower the size of that pathway by using the slider next to the path size. There, that's a little more reasonable. The keyboard shortcut Ctrl+Z or Command+Z on a Mac also works to undo, but I'm using the Delete tool to remove these additional path points. The Zoom option allows us to increase or decrease the size of the asset in order to better control and move the reveal path points. Animation duration is only for testing in the preview window at the top. It does not affect the reveal itself on the canvas. It allows you an easy-to-use method in determining what you would like the duration for that asset to be in the Layers section. Reveal mode tells Doodly to either fade the image into the canvas or draw it, which is revealing it. We can create new paths by clicking on the New Path button, and we can delete the path as well by either clicking on the Delete key or right-clicking and deleting the path. Renaming the path will help for future editing. I don't usually take the time to name the paths, but it does help if you have to come back into the reveal paths later. Looking at the asset settings, we can see there are several options including X and Y coordinates to place the asset on the canvas. This does not work well because it is center aligned instead of left aligned. The width and height are constrained proportions, which means adjusting one of the parameters directly affects the other. Flip changes the direction of the asset on the canvas, and color changes the outline color, while opacity changes how opaque or see-through the asset will be shown on the canvas. It is advised to stay away from using sound effects in this section. Put them on their own audio timeline. When attaching a sound to the asset in this section, it now becomes part of that asset and is limited by that asset's duration instead of its own. For example, if you have a 4-second audio clip or sound effect and only a 1.5-second duration for the asset, the audio clip will only play for 1.5 seconds and abruptly stop. In addition, you lose the ability to control the volume level of the sound effect that's attached to an asset. With that said, you can click on the sound drop down for the sound effect options. There's a search option at the top. The exit animation allows you to tell Doodly to individually erase an asset before beginning the scene transition. Keep in mind that it takes quite a bit of time to erase individual assets. I've seen a few of these examples of this effect and haven't found one that looks good yet. If you do set the exit animation, there is an option to attach a sound effect to it with the same limitations I spoke about earlier. The loop count is for imported GIF animations. It is important to note that Doodly will ignore your loop settings in a GIF animation if you created that animation. You will need to manually set these again in Doodly. Additionally, if you choose to use GIF animations, ensure you've left enough delay time before the next asset is displayed, or enough time at the end of the scene to allow your animation to fully play through the loop sequence. Clicking on Invert will swap the colors of the asset. This is it for this chapter. You should now have an excellent base for working with Doodly. Keep an eye out for more Doodly tips and tricks, and make sure to watch the updates in Doodly section coming up next. There have been a lot of big updates in Doodly since we first recorded this video. Some of these updates we've shown throughout this video, but let's take a deeper look on what's been updated. Version 2.5.7 brings a minor improvement for being able to use the search function for the marketplace bundles, including images and sound effects. The search option is above the items that have been purchased that show up in the marketplace library. Version 2.5.8 brings us a minor improvement to allow for longer audio file imports over 10 minutes. There was an issue when you imported an audio file, such as a voiceover, that was over 10 minutes. The basic audio timeline would not appear. The developers have also fixed a free bundle.das import issue. You should not run into the issue you see on the screen now. Version 2.5.9 fixes some bugs that were discovered. Version 2.6.0 brings a change that sounds great but has some unresolved bugs with it. The ability to change the colors of the text sounds fantastic, but when you go to change the color and then attempt to change the text again, the change of text doesn't always happen immediately and may require multiple attempts. Watch this video I created for and offered to the technical support agents, and they didn't understand the problem enough to accept the video and declined it instead. Here, where I've changed the color of the text to yellow, and now I want to duplicate the scene and then change the text to something else. You'll see that when I change the text, it doesn't change. Sometimes I need to repeat myself 7 times to get the text to change. It's very frustrating. Version 2.6.1 just fixed some minor bugs, and version 2.6.2 has reported that the bug that you just saw has been fixed, but if you keep watching, you'll see as of the latest version, this bug has not been corrected. Version 2.6.3 adds 6 new 3D cartoon hands to each of the canvas types and allows for changing the text color within the text asset settings. We can view the hand per scene in the scene settings as shown here, or change the entire video in the video settings. These cartoon hands really do bring new life to your doodles. I haven't used them, but I've seen them used and really like them when they are used. Each of the canvas types have the same 3D hands to choose from when you click Canvas Type, then click the cartoon hand, and finally on 3D. We can change the color type either by double-clicking on the text asset, as I'm doing now, and then by clicking on the paint palette before you type something, or by highlighting the text that is currently written in the text box and then clicking on the paint palette to change the color. Let's test the report of the developers on whether that frustrating bug is corrected. We will change the text and then click OK. Nope, they reported the bug was corrected, but as you can see here, that bug is not corrected in the latest 2.6.8 version of Doodly. Let's try that again. Okay, now it takes it. Alternatively, you can use the gear icon or asset settings to change the color of the text. Click on the gear icon, change the color of the text, and click Apply. Voila! Text color has been changed. Version 2.6.4 brings free GIFs. Thank you for the gifts, Brad and the Doodly team. The best gift, however, would be if the software had a quality assurance team that could speak directly to the developers and not need to go through support. So when the developers reported items are corrected, the QA team would ensure that they are really corrected. You've heard me speak about the Snap to Grid. This is an extremely nice and useful feature. Let's see this in action. Prior to version 2.6.4, lining up assets in Doodly was not an easy task. There was no Snap to Grid. There were a few choices for lining up assets if you wanted to make a numbered list. You could copy and paste the asset and then bring the copied text down using the Shift key and arrow keys, but watch what happens when I change the text. See how the text is no longer aligned? Now we need to bring the text back into alignment by zooming into the canvas and manually lining the text back up onto the canvas using the Show Grid feature. We can see that I'm at a 525% zoom currently. The other option was to make the ordered list within the text box. That is just really close together. Doodly does not have or offer a full-featured text editor, so trying to get creative by putting another line break between the sentences results in an ordered list that is too far apart. This is not a good method to use. If we turn on Snap to Grid, the text will snap to the areas predetermined by Doodly. Now I can copy and paste and change the text. Doodly center aligns everything, so be prepared to make a lot of left alignment adjustments. You can only view the left, center, and right alignment options if you have more than one line of text within the text box. If we zoom in now, we can see that the alignment using the Snap to Grid is okay. If you really want to be picky on the subject, you can grab a line from the props section and use that to align or just check the alignment of the text. You will need to rotate the line, and there is no snap option for rotating assets on the canvas, so use the grid to ensure the line is straight up and down. Zooming in, we can see the numbers themselves don't quite look aligned, but let's look at the periods behind the numbers because that is probably where it is being aligned from and not to the left of the numbers, given the different types of fonts that are out there. Checking the text, it looks really close. Snap to Grid only works when the grid is shown. If the grid is not shown, Snap to Grid will not function. The Snap to Grid makes lining up assets extremely easy. Version 2.6.5 was a major update that brought the use of 70 new fonts into Doodly for enterprise users and 35 fonts for standard users. This was extremely useful, but if you already had fonts uploaded, they didn't alphabetize your fonts for you. They loaded the system fonts after your fonts, which is quite annoying. Let's take a look at those fonts. The fonts that you see in the beginning are the fonts that I imported personally. I am an enterprise member. Let's take a look at the fonts that I imported. Okay, you saw the tiny scroll bar jump up to the middle? That's because Doodly loaded more fonts. Doodly saw that I was scrolling down and loaded more fonts as I was scrolling down, so it jumped the scroll bar up. Now, watch what happens when we get to the end of the fonts. The scroll bar jumped up again because it loaded more fonts. The scroll bar, you can see, gets tinier and tinier. There. You can see the fonts start again as far as alphabetical. From this point on are the new fonts that were brought in by the Doodly update. If you're a new user, This is fantastic because everything is alphabetized for you, and if you're a seasoned user, well, this is awful. Absolutely zero checks and balances by the developers. Seasoned users ended up with duplicate fonts and an unalphabetized font list. This is quite annoying, and I hope they fix it, but it's been quite a while and they haven't caught on that this is quite annoying to the seasoned users. But they do provide a whole ton of fonts now, whereas we only had 3 fonts to start out with when opening Doodly, and that was Gochi Hand Regular, Handley Regular, and Patrick Hand Regular. Brykson has went out and gathered a ton of royalty-free fonts to make your life easier and your doodles more unique. You can, of course, still import your own fonts into Doodly using the plus sign, as long as they're an OTF file or a TTF file. Not all OTF or TTF files are created the same, so some of them do not work in Doodly. I'm scrolling down, as you can see. Just look at how tiny that scroll bar is now. Doodly developers love their frustratingly tiny scroll bars. I certainly wish they would make the scroll bars bigger when you hover over the scroll bar. Just make it bigger so that when we hover over it, we can click on it with our mouse. There's actually a ton of UI changes that can be made more user-friendly in Doodly, but that's a conversation for another time. Fonts are very important to your doodle, and Doodly now does an amazing job with providing you enough choices. Version 2.6.6 brings some very welcomed features to Doodly. A new Save As option is available. That is just fantastic. This is the same thing as having to go out to the opening page or the My Videos, duplicate your project, and then rename your project, but it does it automatically inside the software instead of having to do it manually. This can be used to create templates. This solves the issue of forgetting to duplicate the project prior to working on it when working for multiple different clientele on various doodles. So now, instead of having to go back and delete everything, we can simply save the project as a new file. This is a very welcomed feature update. There are new menu items. Doodly still has Quit, but now we have the Save As, so we have Save, Save As, Close, and Export Video in the File menu. Notice that we have keyboard shortcuts as well. These will be a command on a Mac, but notice we have Control S, Control Shift S, Control W, and Control E. Inside Edit, we have the same ones: Undo, Redo, Cut, Copy, Paste, and Select All. In Window, we still have Toggle Full Screen and Minimize. In Help, we have Customer Support, Community Discussions, Request Center, and Video Tutorials. In the latest version 2.6.9 that just came out, the video tutorials now lead you to the Doodly YouTube channel. Version 2.6.7 brought a lot of nice features to Doodly. The ability to add or change the font of the selected text on the canvas when selecting a font from the list is brand new. I'll show you that here in a second. The ability to have a custom background on the glassboard was lacking prior to this version. You could not put an image behind the glassboard canvas. Previously, you would have to drag an image onto the canvas, and then you could use the glassboard effect behind it. Brykson has now made it so you can use an image with the glassboard canvas. The improvement we see here of decrease the delay time of assets with duration when dragging the edge of a scene, that's always been there. I've been using Doodly for about a year, and that feature has always been there. So I don't know if the developers just discovered that and it's been accidental all this time, or if that's supposed to really be an improvement. The other is just some unspecified bugs and improvements that have happened. Let's take a look at the ability to select the font. Prior to this version update, we were required to drag the font on top of another and then select Yes, Replace. After this update, the only thing we need to do is select the font and then choose the font on the left-hand side, and the font just changes. That's a very welcomed update and a time saver from previous requirements. Take notice what is happening here and how the font stretches out because Doodly center aligns everything and does not left align it. If it left aligned it, it would keep the ordered list aligned, but because it center aligns everything, it moves the text left and right when you change the font type. Reviewing the ability to have the glassboard image, we'll see it's easy. Let's head over to the scene settings and keeping in mind that if we wanted to change the entire project with the same image, then we would use the video settings to do the same thing. Let's disable using video settings options and choose the glassboard canvas. We can see the browse option up at the top. We can use that option to choose an image from your computer. Once we've chosen the image, we can adjust the bounding box to the area in which we want to appear on the canvas. Ensure the image is inside the bounding box, even if you need to make slight adjustments. Now click Done, and then Apply. Doodly will now put that image behind the assets on the canvas and allow us to use the grid, which is an excellent feature add-on and an extremely important improvement. The old method would cover the grid, rendering it completely useless. Let's show you a prop so that you can see what I'm talking about. See how the asset covers the grid and you cannot see it behind it? An image covering the entire canvas would cover the grid as well. Previewing this, we can see what the effect will look like and get to listen to some sound effects inside the Mega Sound bundle as well. The image import for the glassboard canvas is a very welcomed feature for Doodly. Keeping in mind that the glassboard canvas can become very distracting from your message, so use it wisely. Version 2.6.8 allows subscription users to cancel their subscription and reported a corrected issue with black and white images. Version 2.6.9 brings new Doodly basic tutorials. You can watch those tutorials, but since you've already watched the chapters for this Doodly walkthrough, my guess is that you probably won't find anything in those tutorials you haven't already learned here. You can, however, check them out if you'd like to and see for yourself. They were created around the same time as this update section was created. There is a new lock in the video settings that allows you to lock and unlock the height and width constrained proportions for a custom resolution. We'll show you that in just a bit. And finally, there was another bug reported as corrected that has to do with one of the buttons in Doodly being misconfigured, so hopefully that bug was really corrected. Before we move on to the next section, I would like to point out something so you can hear the difference in audio quality between what you've been listening to and what you're about to hear. I could have taken the time to write out a script and record this section again directly on Audition, but I really wanted you to be able to hear the difference in quality even after cleaning up the audio. Throughout this entire video, I've written the script, read the script, and then edited the recording inside Adobe Audition. I want you to be able to hear the difference between audio recorded in different pieces of software. The next section was recorded using OBS Studio without a script, with the same headphones and computer as the rest of the video. I even removed most of the uhs and ahs and pauses and other noises that happen when recording audio just to make it better, but listen to the quality difference. It really makes a difference in your doodles to have a script and decide what software you're going to record the audio in, such as if you're going to use the internal workings of Doodly or a professional software like Adobe Audition. There's a couple things I'd like to show you here. First, let's look at the lock that's part of this update. When we go to the resolution,
we can see when we go to custom, there's a new lock down here. This allows you to click on the lock and you're able to make your own custom resolution. So if I wanted to do, say, 3840, we can see that the 480 doesn't go, and I can go, say, by 1200. As soon as I click the lock again, see that it automatically readjusts to what it wants as far as a resolution is concerned, like a 1920 by 1080 or a 9 by 16. While we've got the video settings open, I would like to look at the whole UI, because the UI is completely different than what it was before, and it's got a lot of really nice features. The previous UI used to have, that you see in the video, used to have the backgrounds all in a layer. Now they've got it nice and neat in a box here with the tooltips when you hover over them. So you can get different changes. You can see everything change on the right hand side as you click the different types of canvas types. The glassboard, as I showed you before, has the browse for the image. The custom, you can choose custom color with a a color picker, or you can do a custom image to browse your computer. The subtitles, you can turn them off for your entire doodle, or the rainbow. If you turn the rainbow off, you'll get a message that it'll take all of the color images away. When you turn it on, it's going to tell you that it'll put all the color images back. The title, you can drag the title down if you need to. It's kind of a little bug in it. You can see here that the title can be drug all over the place. But they're in nice segregated boxes, which are really nice. Video animation end still has the both with the animation and the audio end, or just the animation ends. The scene transitions is really, there used to be a drop down, and the none transition can now be defaulted in the video settings, which that was not an option before. You've got the swipe left, swipe right, swipe up, swipe down, or swipe mixed, which is just let Doodly choose. And then you also have the camera panning, which allows Doodly to automatically pan over to another scene, but it'll leave a portion of your scene shown. So it's a really, really nice effect. Erase mode has the smart mode, which allows Doodly to determine whether it wants to use the finger or the erase. It'll just do it on its own. Or you can say, no, I only want to use the finger, or erase, or off. You have the resolutions, of course, 360, 480, 720, 1080, and then Facebook and Instagram are 1000 by 1000. But as I mentioned before, I haven't run across anything that requires 1000 by 1000 in either one of these, except for when you're leaving a comment on somebody else's post. The thumbnail does it in a square instead of a rectangle. So, and then that point in time, 1000 by 1000 is good. Custom resolutions, as I just showed you. Going down the middle here, we have the hand styles. So you can do left hand, right hand, marker or chalk. That's because we're on the custom canvas right now. Otherwise, if you're on, just say, the whiteboard, you won't have those. You only have the different options for the hands. In the hand itself, let's go back to that whiteboard. So we've got a little more room to show you the hands. You have a ton of hands to choose from. There are a couple hands to be aware of here. This hand, these two hands right here, the erase mode is actually broken. I've reported that to Doodly multiple times. They obviously don't care. They keep giving me the same answer of, oh, our developers are aware of it and we're working on it. And then they came out with tons of other hands that work with erase mode. The other hand to be aware of is this one here. This takes up, when it's going through, it takes up half your canvas. So it's not typically a good hand to use when you're trying to write. And those are just some tips for you. They have tons and tons of hands to choose from here, which is really, really helpful. And helps make everybody's doodles very unique. You can even choose no hand if you don't want any hand whatsoever. They have cartoon hands. There's a ton of cartoon hands. that you can go down and choose. You can choose left or right-handed cartoon hand, depending on what you want, or again, you can choose no hand. Back up the top, we have 3D. There are 6 3D hands to choose from, or again, you can choose no hand. Those are really useful, and they're very nice looking. They did a really great job with these. So let's go out of here and let's go into the scene settings. So I can show you the difference between the video settings and the scene settings. In the scene settings, we have the animation board style. Basically, this on-off switch says, will you take the video settings? If it's on, it just use the video settings for this scene. When you turn it off, you'll see everything highlight, and what that says is that I want to set my own settings for this scene, for that particular scene. And you can adjust the settings for each individual scene. So we've still got the background styles, just like we showed you before in the video settings. The Doodly rainbow is just for this scene. So we can turn it off for the scene, we can turn it on for the scene. The cartoon hands, the regular hands, they're all exactly the same. Where you start getting into a little different view and different UIs is over here. You've now got extra time at the end of the scene. That allows you to add more time so that people can actually look at your doodle and absorb the scene you just showed. Half a second is not long enough. Minimal is going to be 1.5 seconds, but don't be afraid to do 3 to 5 seconds on a scene. So when you're doing this, the subtitles are static subtitles. So when you do a subtitle inside here, the subtitle is not moving. It's not a closed caption. It's not going to move as you're talking. So it's a static subtitle. There is no way to adjust it. There is only the static at the bottom, so make sure your resolutions are correct. And you can change the color and the background. And that is pretty much it. Those are the biggest differences, is just the UI differences from what you saw in the video to what has changed to date. We are all excited about this new software. We love the hand drawing. It's so catchy. That's why we purchased it. There are quite a few annoyances that you may want to know about ahead of time. Here are a lot of them that I've discovered over the year I've been using the software. My goal with this section is not to attack the Doodly software, but to inform people, including the Doodly developers and staff at Brixen, how an experienced doodler and a longtime customer that has spent about 10 times the required amount of money to use the software and continues to spend money on other Brixen created software views the Doodly software, and to demonstrate the frustrations that come along with the software use from a customer point of view, in hopes of helping to point the company into a direction that would better all users. This is not to say that there are not great things to say about the software and that Brixen doesn't consistently update their software to make it better, which they do, as proven by my Updates and Doodly section in this very series. This section is designed to point out to users what frustrations they may run into that have been repeatedly mentioned in the comment section of this YouTube channel and the groups for which I'm a member. To be fair and not make it sound like I am just another user complaining, for which there are plenty, I provide not only the part that is frustrating to the user, but also suggestions and designs for rectifying the frustration in hopes that someone at Brixen will see this section and the developers will fix the issues. As a user of the software, know that if you don't experience any of the issues, or perhaps you see something that was in my design that's now in the Doodly software, then this section was successful in nature and someone from Doodly is watching my videos and they did make a difference. You can include any other frustrations you've run across in the comments below. A comment doesn't mean Brixen will read them, but at least there will be a publicly available list of all of the frustrations together, and perhaps we can turn Doodly into a phenomenal piece of software.
Technical support is wonderful at minimalistic answers. They receive those every single day, but anything more technical than how do I or what do I do questions, and you receive a canned response that makes absolutely no sense. It's almost as if you're talking to an AI response bot that doesn't understand the question. The software is extremely memory heavy, so unless you have a lot of memory in your computer, don't plan on exporting at 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second with 100% quality. Exporting times are horrendous in Doodly, especially if you're trying to export the audio and video together. This is quite annoying. Some of the time frames I've seen for rendering are insane for smaller videos. A larger project rendered for 35 hours and then crashed after 27 out of those 35 hours. At one point, Doodly said NaN, or not applicable, time left, or it will take infinity hours to render this project. It was so funny, I actually threw it up in the Facebook group, and of course the Doodly police deleted it. People have complained about this for a very long time, and I won't bore you with technical details as to why this happens. Just know that if you're getting plagued with audio and video rendering times that are greater than 20 hours, and you want to speed up the rendering, then render your audio separately from your video, and use a third-party video editor to combine both of those now rendered doodles. Just ensure the FPS is the same for both renders. It cut my 35-hour render time down to 10 hours, which is still ridiculous for a 50-minute video. Rendering is done completely from the memory in the computer and not the GPU. So it doesn't matter if you have the latest and greatest GPU because Doodly doesn't use it. Which brings up my very next issue, misinformation by technical support. Technical support has made claims multiple times that Doodly rendering times are because the software is connected to the internet. Being connected to the internet has absolutely nothing to do with the rendering times in Doodly. This, along with other stuff they tell you, is huge misinformation. If Doodly requires the internet to render, then I wouldn't be able to disable the internet from my computer and successfully render a doodle. Here is a video providing proof that when they tell you the rendering times are because of the internet, they're wrong. Let's watch.
So I want to prove a point to everyone here. The technical support keeps saying how you have to be on the internet and it causes the internet to cause the rendering times that are slow in Doodly. I want to show you something here. I'm going to take myself off the internet. You can see I'm already in Doodly. So here I am disconnecting. I am no longer connected via Wi-Fi or via wired cable to the internet. Now, my Doodly is already opened, which means I've already downloaded the items from Doodly. I'm already in here. I'm going to export. The export window still comes up. 1080p still comes up. 60 frames a second. Let's change this over. All of this stuff still works. So I'm going to just say a 2 here. I'm going to save and I'm going to continue. We can see here that I'm still exporting. This does not use the internet to render your video. Matter of fact, what it does is it uses your temp files. The only time that the internet is used is when you make that initial connection to download the files. That's why you need to be on the internet to be able to download the files. So you can see here we're still rendering at 17%, about 8 minutes left. That'll actually cut down, and as soon as it hits about 60%, it'll jump to about 2 minutes and then it'll finish. But Doodly does not need the internet to render your video. The only thing that you need the internet for is to sign in for authentication and to download the files from the breaks and servers so that you can create your doodle. If you're already in Doodly, you can render your scenes without a problem if you lose internet connection. Here we are with 5 minutes left. I'll take a look at the task manager. I've got a lot open right now, which is why it's using up 100% of the CPU. So Doodly's using 800 and 900, almost a gig's worth of memory here. That's a lot of memory to use. I mean, as it stands, Chrome with 25 pages open is using 1.3 gigs. But here is where, this is where Doodly does all its rendering. So if the files are already in memory in your computer, just because you have internet doesn't matter. It's irrelevant whether or not, as long as the files are already converted to memory. And we can see here, Doodly's memory usage goes up and up and up as it starts rendering more and more. Now, taking 11 minutes for literally an SVG file that's 30 kilobytes and some text, and to take 11 minutes to render that is absolutely completely ridiculous. Yes, I agree. But that is how Doodly works because of the memory usage inside here. It's so heavily memory, it's so memory heavy on it that it fights itself to be able to render. And that's how Doodly keeps everything secure to the breaks and servers, is because they put it all in memory instead of running it as files and references to files like Adobe Premiere do on your computer. So when you're rendering it strictly in memory and the computer and the program runs off of memory, everything else in your computer is using memory. It's basically fighting itself to render, which is why these rendering times take so long. It has nothing to do with the internet like the technical support keeps telling you. Here we can see we're at the encoding rendering frames. So it'll start jumping up here. It's encoding the video. So basically what it did is it processed all the scenes, which is only one scene, and you can see it's jumping up now inside there. If we take a look at the memory usage, the memory jumped up to 1.2 gigs, which is about the same speed as Chrome is using with multiple tabs. Now we can see here that I am still not connected to the internet. Let's check the file out. This is the one I just created before, and here is a successful render for a doodle without the necessary or the need for the internet. So please do not believe it when technical support says, oh, we use the internet to render and that's why the rendering times are so slow. That is wrong. Lack of additional video timelines. Up until version 2.6.9, there is only one video timeline. You can create multiple audio timelines, for which we will talk about next, but multiple video timelines are out of the question, and this is quite annoying because you cannot properly layer. Instead, they give you the layers section, which you can only see 3 full layers maximum on a 2K screen, like 98% of the world owns. If you look at the Doodly videos on YouTube where they have a 4K screen or larger in the video, you can see more layers. But do you really want to change out your computer equipment for software that should be more optimally designed with a new UI, such as the one I'm showing on the screen? With a more optimal design, the software can accommodate those of us without a 4K or higher or 65-inch screens. The toggle full screen is completely useless. It only gets rid of the title bar. They could get rid of the entire upper quarter and just leave the menu, the My Video link, and the title, and that would give us plenty of room, but that's not what they choose to do. Audio is a huge issue in Doodly. Doodly support on one hand tells you there is no limit to the size of the doodle you can create, but then on the other hand tells you that your doodle is too big when it crashes. Audio needs to be staggered on more than one audio timeline, but if you add too many audio timelines to your doodle, it'll crash again. Doodly is a very unstable piece of software. The user experience and user interface for Doodly is atrocious. Undo and redo are a mess. They work on individual scenes instead of the entire project, but nowhere does anybody teach you this except here in this video.
They don't work in pan and zoom at all. Sometimes when moving a layer, it'll jump all the way up to the first position without your knowledge. Duplicating scenes is a train wreck. It appears to work fine until you close out of your doodle and go back into it and then realize that even though you carefully duplicated and then changed the scene and then duplicated again and changed the scene again multiple times, when you get to larger projects, suddenly Doodly will duplicate, triplicate, and sometimes quadruplicate random scenes throughout your doodle. Additionally, it'll randomly move one of your scenes to scene 1 even though it used to be scene 84, now causing you to either have to copy and paste it or drag it back, which is extremely slow. Pan and zoom, as popular as this feature is, works backwards, which is why it's so difficult for people to grasp. Some people get it right away, but others don't, because you have to think backwards with the zoom function. This should be a built-in function like every other software out there so that you can apply a zoom or pan by selecting the area and clicking a button, then the software does it for you. There is no grid in the pan and zoom, so you must manually line everything up, making it very difficult to use. Doodly is very laggy, regardless of the internet you have. It's not you, it's the program. The software is very poorly programmed and needs a complete redesign under the Windows framework using Visual Studio instead of a custom programming job as it has now. The Facebook group is run by the Doodly police. Absolutely zero support requests are allowed in the Facebook group, and don't even think about whispering anything that could be considered as potentially bad about the software because you will be banned. It's a facade. They want new users to come in and pretend everything is peaches and cream, so you don't cancel the subscription or return the software. There are 5 main groups of people in the Facebook group. 1, people waiting for people to come in and offer jobs. They kind of linger and don't really socialize, but are all over the job offers. They're good people, but you'll fight for a job offer if you think you'll make any money from people offering in that group. 2, people really wanting to help other people, but those are a select few, like myself and a few others. I see the same names repeatedly most of the time. 3, people wanting help, but a lot of those get sent over to support@doodly.com, and their commenting becomes blocked on their posts. Thank you, Doodly please. 4, people sharing their doodles and wanting critiques. And 5, people sharing their doodles just to draw people to their YouTube or Instagram channel. These typically don't turn out that well. The Facebook group is run by young kids, and they run it like Nazis. If you don't fall within whatever they deem to be the rules, then you're banned and kicked out. And the rules are whatever they want to make them because they allow things that are in the rules not to do, and then things that are not in the rules, you're not allowed to do those, such as leaving a signature for your comment. Well, that's not in the rules not to do that, but then they kick you out. When they warn you, you can't actually see the warning, and this is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of. You get a warning from the Facebook group. The warning says an admin has commented. You click on the comment and nothing is there. They have the group settings so that only they can see the comments the admins provide. So you write Doodly support and say, hey, I can't see the comments that are being provided, and you receive a response saying that they're not responsible for how Facebook chooses to share the comments with you. What? That's completely idiotic. Exporting options are not automatically set to the video settings when you created the video. So in your mind, you've set these options already, but then you have to set them a second time when you export. This is absolutely stupid. Either automatically use the video settings as the export options, or put the settings into a variable and then automatically set the export for the user.
Breaks-In developers have already done this with the custom resolution, as I'm demonstrating here. They just need to make it happen with the rest of the resolutions. This is a big problem with an easy fix, and I see this issue repeatedly in the Facebook group. Adding a warning about changing the resolution would help prevent the black bars from showing up on people's doodles as well. As easy as this software is to drag and drop, there are so many issues with the user interface. Given the heavy memory usage, Doodly crashes a lot or lags a tremendous amount. There is zero quality assurance in this software. You will be the alpha tester in the software lifecycle. I get the impression that the people running the company have zero experience with programming software, so they are taking the developer's word for it and using an Indian development company. I've been using Indian companies for 20 years for development, so I'm very familiar with the language barrier, the shoddy programming, and the developers claim that it's done when it's really full of bugs. This is what happens when you're using an inexpensive company overseas. So you either must know programming so you can catch all of the little innuendos that happen, or you need a team of professionals known as your quality assurance team to test the software. Additionally, a team of alpha or beta testers to be able to point out the bugs, and that is severely lacking in Doodly or any Brixen software for that matter. Brixen is using the old Microsoft method. Program it first, put it out as stable, and let your users figure out the bugs and the frustrations, and just filter everything through support. The issue there is that Microsoft had 100 million people instantly to be able to use this approach, whereas Doodly has around 80,000. And since they don't optimally utilize their Facebook page, you're forced to funnel all of your complaints through support, which become very old as soon as you get past the initial excitement of, oh, they answered me right away and they knew how to add an image. Searching is a mess. You need to know exactly who and not what you are searching for in Doodly, and Brixen doesn't provide a character database. So this forces you to go through the characters and create your own database. There are tens of thousands of assets to choose from, making cataloging them accurately impossible. Even searching the marketplace is a wreck. Looking at the marketplace, we need to scroll down and click the See More button to display a few more bundles. We then scroll down again and repeat the process. Now, let's click on one of the bundles. Pretend we looked at it and hit our back button, and now we need to start the process all over again from the beginning. This is very frustrating. There is no organizational process inside the software for your props, so you're forced to get creative with naming conventions for the items you import. Doodly is designed around keeping your property on the Brixen servers. This is a cloud-based software, but there's no method for you to maintain your projects without a subscription. If they decide to shut down the Doodly project, you lose everything. You cannot export even the images you imported as images. You can only export them as a .das file or Doodly asset file, which will only work in Doodly. Some assets you're not allowed to export at all. You can share assets, but only with another Doodly user. The lack of attention to detail in the software is offensive. Whenever a new feature comes out, I always expect it not to function properly, and when a bug is reported, I don't expect it to be corrected. Like the text not changing bug that was reported as corrected that I showed in earlier chapters that was not corrected. Just more lack of attention to detail in the software. An end user should not feel like this about the software they're using. Therefore, people are upset about their purchase and feel like they're getting ripped off. But you won't see that in the Facebook group because those posts are immediately removed and those people are banned. Scary coded non-user-friendly error messages like this one. This is a JavaScript error message that just means you're not connected to the internet. The software cannot connect to the Brixen server. That could be made to be user-friendly, saying, please check your internet connection, but they leave it like this in code, which nobody's going to understand. My plan here was to write out a script for all of the bugs and frustration and go over them all that I've seen over the past year. But this is going on the 4th page of script right now, and I have not even started to climb the mountain of frustrations dealing with the software. So if I continue, you're going to be listening to me for the next 4 hours. So I'm going to stop here. Let's move on to the behind the scenes video.
These behind the scenes videos are unedited and unscripted, so you can hear and see the difference between a video with and without a script and video enhancements and one without any audio or video enhancements like zoom or screen fades. All the other videos up until this point have been carefully edited and scripted. This is not the entire process, but it will give you a great feel for what went into the 5 months it took to create this free 13-chapter video series. So make sure you give that subscribe button a click and turn on those notifications. When writing a script, we take a look at the scenes that we recorded first. So you'll see different colors here because what that means, you'll see a dark gray and then you'll see a lighter gray color. That helps me keep track of scripts that I'm not using, or ones that I have used and then I've already got to be able to go to the next chapter. I've already recorded that because the recording doesn't happen in just one day. It happens over a period of weeks. So when you're first writing these scripts, I am watching all of the video that I recorded and I'm stopping the video and then I'm writing a paragraph or two. Then I practice the paragraph or two against the script to make sure that it will line up properly in the video for when I record it and import it. So I'll watch it while I'm reading the script and I'll take a look and go, okay, that's enough for the sentences inside there, or maybe it's not. Now, it is important to understand that no matter how much you do that, your audio never exactly matches your video. It is crazy how you tend to add more things in the script as you go, oh, well, you know, that doesn't really make sense, so let me change this script before you record it. And you go, I'll just edit it in the video later on, or I'll create more time or whatever I need to do. So when I'm writing these, I'm looking at the video and I'm going through and writing every bit of this. As I get done with the chapter, I highlight it in gray, so if I don't get back to the next chapter or to record the next chapter or sync it up to the video, then I know where I left off easily enough. So on top of here, for this video in chapters 1 through 9, there are 28 pages, 25 pages of script that are inside there. I will record each chapter at once. So I will take chapter 1, record it all the way through, then I'll import chapter 1. Well, first I'll edit it. I'll edit chapter 1 audio inside Adobe Audition, and then once I'm happy with the results of that voice or that the editing, I'll save it as both a WAV file and an MP3 file. Then I will import it into the video and I'll work on chapter 2. And on chapter 2, let's see here, you can see like chapter 3 is a very, very short chapter. We just talk about the title bar and that's it, what you can do with it. Chapter 4, when we record it, you know, some of these go for a few pages. And then I like to put the times that you'll see here to let me know where in the video that should be. So it helps me line up the audio, so I can come back to the script and I can hear myself in the video and I go, okay, that should be right around this 20 minutes and 18 seconds into the video, or that time marker. This doesn't always work because when you're working with the previous chapters, you actually have to expand the chapter because the audio is longer than the video. So you have to expand that chapter by 5 minutes or 2 minutes. So this is just a small reference to where it should be in comparison, and it'll give you a good idea on how to be able to line up and sync up your audio to your video, but it does nothing more than that. It's never exactly exact. It's never pinpointed exactly where you think it's going to be. It's just helpful to have. So going through all of this is all the text that I wrote for the video that you just watched. And so this is every single chapter all the way up to chapter 9. This does not include the Takia or the other chapters that I have yet to write.
So the thought process here behind these scenes, I've got a bunch of scenes to actually make, or at least one of these chapters. You can see I've recorded the audio down here already. That audio goes quite a ways. Alright, so let's go here, and you can see there's no video for all of this audio. Alright, let's put this into bigger picture here. So the next chapter is going to go for about 15 minutes. It's going from 1 hour 50 minutes to 2 hour and 5 minutes. But each one of these sections inside here is something I'm talking about differently. So let's take a listen here.
And use a third-party video editor to combine both of those now rendered doodles.
All right, so as I'm talking, I've got to put stuff inside the video. So what I am doing is I recorded everything first. I'm listening to each section. I'm thinking about that section, what I'm going to do with it, and then I am making it happen. Whether it's a background to have, let's say I want a background in there for the background layer for particles. So it's just something nice so you're not looking at a black screen or a white screen. It's easy on the eyes. It's non-distracting from the message that I want, even though there's movement. It's not drawing your eye to the movement. So these are all different things to think about while you are making your video. Make sure that the length of time that you're adding. So once I start there, as you can see, I've started this process here. I'm adding the transitions. Alright, so when these are like cross dissolves, as you can see, as I'm going frame by frame. And then comes in here, and you can see the background there is not too distracting. You're still focused on the main portion, not worrying about the background, but it's still nice to be able to have in there. So as we're going here, it's just a matter of planning it out. Look at each section, take it one step at a time, listen to your sections, and then figure out what you want to do, and then just make the timing happen. So a lot of people ask what it takes to create a video like this. Well, one of the things is recording and editing. They want to know whether you should write your script or whether or not you should create the video first. It depends on what you're actually doing with Doodly. If you're creating a tutorial, then recording what you want is imperative because you have to know how to write your script. It's much easier to write your script around what you see on the screen than it is to try to record the screen while you're writing your script. Now, if you're creating a strictly 100% video in Doodly, then it is imperative to write your script first, record your script, because it's much easier to line up the audio or the images to the audio when you're creating it strictly in Doodly. Now, this is Adobe Audition, similar to Adobe Audacity online. You can see here the timeline up here shows you where I'm looking at on the screen right now. So this little white section up here gives a representation of what I'm looking at here in comparison to how long the audio timeline is that I'm editing. When I'm listening to this, I'm listening for heavy breaths. So if I'm taking a heavy breath like, I don't want that to show up in the video. And I can identify those by this. So let's take a listen here. We can see I said each path points and then I took a breath. So I can either choose to mute that. All right, so if I mute it, I can use Control U to heal that. But now I've got a space in between that R. So there's certain places where you do kind of want a space in there to let the audience know that you are breathing and you are human and not a robot. But there's other times where, you don't, if you're taking too many breaths, you can come in here and cut that audio out there. So now when I go back to listen to it, it makes it sound like I'm actually talking in a real sentence.
So I go through every one of these and I look through the entire audio as I'm listening to it, and I take out heavy breaths. I'll keep breaths in there that are minor to let people know that I am taking a breath and that I don't talk for 3 minutes straight without breathing. So there's also microphone noise, pops, clicks, lip smacks, and environmental noise, the hum from the computer you're plugged into, 60 hertz. There's a lot of stuff that goes in there that you have to edit out inside your doodle. The microphone matters as well that you're using, but I'm using a $22 Logitech microphone, and I have tried the $200 microphones, the $300, the $150, that you just can't hear me. I'll be screaming at the top of my lungs and you just cannot hear what I'm saying. So let's take a look at a little bit of some of these that I Alright, so here we can see that there are spots here, and we heard a little click click, and that's me clicking the mouse or clicking a key or doing something here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to knock that out with Control U inside Adobe Audition for heal. I think I actually made it Control U. I don't think that was an option. I think I actually assigned the keyboard Control for Control U for heal. So now so we can see here that's not a breathe, that's me saying finally, so we want to keep that in there. But there was a little breath there. We can keep that in, that doesn't matter because it lets people know you're human. You can take it out if you wanted to take it out, and the long pause will also let them know that you're breathing. So that would be one of the things that you don't want to do inside the video. Alright, so inside there, you might not have caught it, but there was a little click right here. So if I come in and play that back, it just goes click, like a little. So I'll take that and I'll do that. And I go through the entire audio just like that, pulling out little spots that I see to make the audio better. There's other things that you can do inside the audio as well to heal up your audio, make it sound better. But typically when I'm doing a video tutorial, this is really the main portion. Alright, so there was another click, and I go through and I repeat all of this. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what it takes to edit the audio. There is a lot of scripts. This is just one script for chapter 9. Every one of the chapters has a different audio section that I had to go through and edit each one of these, whether it was 20 minutes long, 2 minutes long, a minute long. You know, you have to go through and do the same process over and over and over again. So every video tutorial that you hear on our channel has the same exact process built in, and we spend the time to edit the audio so you don't have to sit there and listen to heavy breathing, lip smacks, microphone noise, and we want to make the audio sound as crisp and clear for you as possible so you can get the information that you desire. Sometimes when recording sound, you'll get this 60 hertz hum on your microphone or where it's plugged into, and you don't want that in your video. So you can actually reduce that if you're using Adobe Audition, and I'm sure Adobe Audacity has something similar, but I can come into Effects and go to Noise Reduction. Now the noise reduction process will turn around and I can capture the noise. Now when I want to apply that, I select everything and just click apply. I don't have to make any changes here because the default settings are really good. And you'll see that 60 hertz hum that was highlighted earlier is gone. So now let's take a listen to the video. In addition, you lose the ability to control the volume level of the sound effect that's attached to an asset. And I misspoke, with video is supposed to be listen to the audio. Now I'm going to undo that, and we can see that that 60 hums is back, and let's test it again. In addition, you lose the ability to control the volume level of the sound effect that's attached to an asset. Now in the background, I'm not sure if you can hear that on the final video here, but in the background you can hear a slight hum. Sometimes that hum is really loud, so sometimes it's really annoying. So that's a different way, or a method that you can use to reduce the sound effects that are inside there, or the environmental sounds that come into your video or audio recordings. When creating the video, there's a lot that goes into the video, such as the black lines that you see here are all video cuts to sync the video to the audio. Alright, so here we've just recorded chapter 9 and edited chapter 9. So we've got to import the audio inside the video. So you can see here, this is every single file that has been created and imported to make this video a reality. I had to design 90% of these files, or create them, whether they are GIF animations, whether they're movies that are imported, all of the effects that you see with the zooming effect, with the HLS, as far as the lighting going out, and then so it's highlighting a certain area. Being able to set the keyframes inside here. This is everything that you have to do, and you can see there is a lot of information here that had to be imported, aligned, and made to allow you to be able to see the video that you just watched. So we're going to import the actual script now. So you can see here's all the scripts that I had to create and edit, just like you saw in the editing video. Or the audio editing portion. And so we're going to import the chapter 9, but this is everything that I have created for this video and spoke and written scripts about. So let's import the MP3 file for chapter 9, and we're going to take it down here and line it up. Now we can see that it actually is less than the actual chapter, so that's going to require a lot of editing. It's close, but the video actually goes beyond the audio. So we're going to have to shrink this video to match up to the audio to make it sync up. So when we come in and we play techniques instead, time for chapter 9. We can see the different effects, and we can hear, I'll be talking about Doodly basics, I'll be talking about different asset attachments. So if I keep it there, where it's at, chapter 9 asset settings. Now all of a sudden we're going to learn all about Doodly basics. I'm not lined up, so I've got to come in here and line that up, and we start out at the process. There's no magic way to line this up when you're talking about doing a video on the where you're not talking. There are ways of lining up your audio to when you're actually on the set and your face is actually talking. The Premiere has an amazing lineup tool, but when you're talking about showing what's on the screen to what you're actually saying, there's no magic way to do this other than listening. Time for chapter cutting. Chapter 9 asset settings. We're going to learn all about Doodly basics, sound effects, specifically asset attachments. This is the last chapter in the Doodly walkthrough that we show you before we show you the updates that have happened in Doodly post-recording this walkthrough. So you can see here now all of a sudden I'm talking. That is supposed to finish here. So now I've got to take this screen and I've got to extend it out to here, or to have, if we don't want to do that, I've got to have a scene where I cut it out and where the mouse isn't moving. I'll find a couple scripts, so I'll head it all the way down. Alright, and I'll look at frame by frame to see. Alright, so we end there, and I'll look to make sure where the mouse is not moving. Oh, that's where the mouse starts to move. So I'll take these 4 frames, 5 frames here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where the mouse is not moving, and I will copy those all the way out to where this stops. And that's way it will allow me to align the video. So that'll extend the video, but then there's going to be other portions of that video, as we're well aware, that I have to stop that video right where this audio stops here to switch over to the next scene. So I'll have to make a ton of cuts and speed adjustments to this video to allow it to sync up and line up with the audio that I just recorded and edited. We can see here that I've made copies. I've moved this out. I found out where I wanted this next piece of video to start, which was right here. All right, and I have copied each one of these 5 frames over and over again, so it makes it look like the mouse is not moving. So we take a look, and there's a lot of copies there. I don't want to have to deal with each one of those individually, so I'm going to highlight those, and we're going to just make a nest here. So we'll just nest all of that into a subsequence, and then that way we've got one part to work with versus 500 different 5-frame sections. So, and we'll just name this Chapter 9 Beginning Intro, or Chapter 9 Intro. And now that changes it into one spot, and I can drag that down in its place. Now, when we come in and we listen to this, Chapter 9 Asset Settings. We're gonna learn all about Doodly, and the lag that you see there is actually because Premiere is actually too hectic for the computer I'm working on. Even though I have a precision workstation that's designed to work with Premiere, it's not made to actually work on the computer I'm at. So I get a lot of lag inside there as far as Premiere lagging and sounding real jittery, if you will. So it's just something that you learn to live with, but it does take a lot more time to be able to do videos like that for you when that happens in the background. So it's frustrating, but you'll see here that we also have to take time to line up the audio. So if we listen to it again, Chapter 9 Asset Settings. We're going to learn all about Doodly basics, sound effects, specifically asset attachments. This is the last chapter in the Doodly walkthrough that we show you before we show you the updates that have happened in Doodly post recording this walkthrough. Clicking on an asset reveals several options above the asset. The first one is Edit, and we can see there that we came into Edit before we started mentioning it. So here is the first one, and that's right where I would want the click to happen. So if that's the case, then we're going to take the time and remember where that time is, and then we're going to come back here right where I click on it. So we'll take it into the frames, frame by frame. And right there is where it clicks in. So I'm going to cut that right here. So we're going to switch over to our crop tool. I'll cut the video, and then we're going to paste. That's where I want that to end. So essentially, I want to bring the audio from this crop point to this area here. Now, I've already moved all the audio and video that I have on the right hand side further away, so I have room to work with and drag, because I already know that this is going to happen. So I'll take this will snap right to the playhead inside Premiere. Now if I right click, I can speed up the duration, and I can make it a longer duration. Now it's not going to take 17 seconds, but what this does is it pushes it all the way to there, and then I can see what the real time is, and the real time is 5:57. So I'll undo my change, and then I'll paste in the real time for the duration, 557 to bring it right to that point. So now this will take, and if
Clicking on an asset reveals several options above the asset. The first one is edit. Clicking on the edit,
and maybe I wanted to do clicking on the edit instead. So
clicking on the edit icon will open the asset edit.
So maybe that's what I want instead.
Click on the edit icon.
Alright, so clicking on the edit icon, and then maybe I want to go, okay, let me bring that in. Now let me get to the speed. Let me set that for an obscene amount of time so that I can get the real duration. So the real one is 825, and then I'll undo that and then set that for 825. So now, if we listen to it again, which is whenever you're doing videos, you're constantly listening to yourself over and over and over again because you want to make sure that everything is lined up properly. There's no magical way to line this up. It is just time.
Asset reveals several options above the asset.
The first one is edit.
Clicking on the edit icon will open.
Okay, so that was a little lag from Premiere again.
Clicking on the edit icon will open the asset editing options.
Alright, and so that I'm happy with. I like the fact that as soon as I say clicking, that it does actually open it up, and it now aligns with my voice. So this is what it takes to sync your audio, and you constantly are repeating that over and over and over again and making all of these cuts. If we take a look at the previous chapters, let's take a look at some of them, and you can see all of the black lines that you see here are all different cuts in video. So when I have to come in and let's take it from the beginning here. Alright. So it's Premiere being laggy again. Hi. And then you have the save project, of course, that does the same thing as Doodly, except Doodly does it every minute, whereas Premiere does it every 15 minutes, and it stops your project. Welcome to your first of many Doodly walkthrough video tutorials. So I had to create this entire effect in Doodly, and then I had to line it up just like you saw with the voice and exactly what's going to happen inside here. So we had to go through, and if you take a look, let's zoom in to, say, this portion right here. Take a look at all of the cuts that have to happen between the audio and the video. Every one of those is a cut that goes through. Alright, so that effect that you saw in the beginning, alright, every one of these is a different video timeline, alright, to allow me to edit. And every one of those cuts is a cut I had to make to that video timeline to make this work. So in order to have the effects I have with the video, with the asteroids behind it, the scene, and then Doodly writing the chapters inside here to make sure the chapters actually did work where they were going to, and they stayed on the same line. So you'll see that Doodly gets Premiere gets extremely laggy inside there, but you can see all the different cuts that have taken place, all the different audio files, so the different noise sound effects that you see had to be lined up with the actual voice. I tried to export those out of Doodly, but it was at the time that Doodly had a major bug with exporting these audio effects, and it was way off from what I did in the Doodly video. So during the preview in Doodly, the sound effects were perfect, but during the export, it was not. It was way off. So instead of sitting there trying to troubleshoot it and send stuff in and waiting for them to fix it, which they have reported that they did fix that issue, I exported the sound effects that I wanted and did it in Premiere and lined everything up in Premiere. And I did find that exporting your audio and video from Doodly in separate doodles tremendously speeds up the rendering time in Doodly. So there is definitely bugs inside Doodly that have to do with the audio that I have reported, but I think it gets too technical for the technical support because they don't understand what I'm saying, and the developers deny that it's happening. So the technical support has to go by the developers. The developers are denying that it's even a problem, and they're trying to put the blame they're trying to play the "it's not us, it's you" blame game, when it is indeed the Doodly software that's causing it through all the testing I've done. So that probably won't be any issues that are fixed anytime soon because it doesn't look like the developers want to listen that there actually is a problem. So, but this will bring you through exactly what it takes to make one of these videos. This is why it takes so long to create one of these videos for you, because there is a tremendous amount of cuts. Then you have the additions of the special effects. So you have different special effects. So if we come in here, we can see that this is a cross dissolve. So you have to line those up. On top of that, you have to adjust the actual cross dissolve to the speed that you want. So each time you put what looks like a little piece of tape here, all right, it's actually some kind of a special effect inside there for a transition from one scene to another. So you have to know what you want to use, how you want it. You have to try different special effects to see which one you like better. So all of these takes time to be able to do, and hopefully this gives you a good idea of what it takes to put one of these videos together. Now here's an interesting issue that you run into when editing videos. The audio. Sometimes you'll create video that does not match the audio, where you forgot to write in your script about a section of video that was in here. This is one of those things I was telling you about. If we listen to the audio, we'll see it does not match the audio. I will be showing the zoom tool, but I'll be talking about the animation duration inside the audio, which means we're going to have to cut the audio and bring it to the correct spot, because we don't want to cut out that zoom part, as it is very important for you to be able to see that. So let's listen to that. Animation duration is only for testing in the preview window at the top. It does not affect the reveal itself on the canvas. It allows you an easy to use method in determining what you would like the duration for that asset to be in the layers section. Alright, so that stops that whole section of audio from all the way from 119 here all the way up to 119.25 or 1925, 119.25. The talks about animation. Now look at the animation that starts there currently. Now reveal mode tells Doodly to either. I'm showing you the animation bar there. So in the animation bar that I'm showing you, only, let's see here, goes for alright, so about right there. So that entire spot from beginning until about here all talks about animation. The animation toolbar, or the animation duration toolbar. So we want to stop that about right there, and we'll do a cut. So we have that, but we also want to cut here, and that's going to leave a big audio spot. Let's put that behind here, and let's make sure we're not going to run into anything on our audio. We're not. And let's go here. Premiere will automatically line up the cut audio spots. So now we've got a spot in our video with absolutely no audio, talking about the zoom effect on the canvas when you're drawing paths. So I've got to recreate audio for that now that will fit in that exact spot. Animation duration is only for testing in the preview window at the top. It does not affect the reveal itself on the canvas. It allows you an easy to use method in determining what you would like the duration for that asset to be in the layers section. Reveal mode. Alright, so then that starts off at reveal mode. So that's about right where I'd want the animation, but that's going to make me have to go back and just recreate some audio and edit some audio for that to be able to slide into that spot. So I'll have to go back and write a script for it. And you run into these issues constantly. You can see here where as I am editing this chapter, alright, there are areas that I've had to line up that there's no video that matches with what I'm saying. So I've got to create images, extend a video out, zoom in, zoom out to manage that timeline so you guys can get the information for what I'm saying as well as see it on the screen and manage those up. So, and then there's another section here. So as you can see, I'm about halfway done with editing this video. It's been about 40 minutes. This is not a bad chapter at all to be able to do, not like chapter 7, which took, I think, 5 days to edit that chapter of working on that, hours and hours every day. So here's an interesting thing that just happened. This happens when you're writing your script and then recording your script. A lot of times you'll have items that are backwards. And so that's what just happened here. Inside the video, I've got flip up here where the mouse passes past flip, but I'm talking about it. But instead, I talk about color first, and then I talk about flip. Let's listen to that. Affects the other. Color changes the outline color. And flip changes the direction of the asset on the canvas. Alright, we can see here that obviously what I'm saying doesn't line up with what's going on. So at that point in time, we have to take and figure out. So if I take flip, if I get inside here, and we know that the word and is right here. So I can cut the audio about right here and splice that around. So, and let's go here. Alright, so right there is about where we can cut flip. So now we can drag that out of there. And remember, it's still got that word and in there. And so we can line that up with where flip is. So I would have to stretch out flip right about there. And we want to make that section from here to here stretch all the way through this section. So that way it lines up with what you're talking about as you're going past or what you're doing. This is all involved in lining up or syncing audio to the video to make sure that your audience understands exactly what you're trying to do. It takes a little bit of extra time to be able to do this, but it's a lot better for the viewer to be able to understand and be able to see what's happening on the screen, which will get you better results. We can see here where I've made those adjustments now to the sound, and let's take a listen to how that sounds and if it lines up with the video now. Directly affects the other. Flip changes the direction of the asset on the canvas, and color changes the outline color. Okay, so you can see here now, even though I don't go over the color area, I still talk about color, and even though I didn't talk about opacity, I could record some kind of a voiceover in there just to talk about opacity real quick and then slow it down to be able to say okay, and as well as opacity will allow you to change how opaque the asset is in the canvas or allow it to be see-through. And I'll probably add that in at a later moment after I get done with everything. I'll re-record that, or I'll leave a spot in there in the video to allow me to be able to mention that in there. After we have taken and aligned everything and got everything set, You can now see how many cuts there are to make sure that the audio is aligned with the video with what's being shown on the screen. It takes a lot of time to be able to put these together and set them up. Let's take a listen to a few of the parts in here so you can actually see what's going on now with everything that's gone through just this chapter. Doodly walkthrough that we show you before we show you the updates that have happened in Doodly post-recording this walkthrough. Clicking on an asset reveals several options above the asset. The first one is Edit. Clicking on the Edit icon will open the asset editing options. We see a full picture of the asset. Everything in this window relates to how Doodly should reveal the image. Most of the items here are about creating paths for the reveal of your doodle. It takes a bit of getting used to, but this section right here is the power of Doodly. This section right here is what makes those awesome reveals. So we can see here that it's perfectly lined up to say, let's click on the reverse or the return. Let's go here. As it's going through, the cursor is showing you the different sections. Now let's take a look at some of the other ones. Each path will be when the reveal happens. Too big or small of reveal paths and the realism will be lost. Find the happy medium. The Tools section allows you to select and move and add or delete path points. If we want to move one of the path points, we can do that with the Move tool. Each point tells the reveal hand where to stop when revealing the image on the canvas. Now I want to stop there. Do you see how long it's taking to sit in one spot while you're listening to me talk? Well, that's a problem. I don't ever want to put somebody through 30 seconds of the cursor or nothing happening on the screen, or even 15 seconds. So that's where special effects come in, where zooming, creating another image, taking screenshots of different areas, and then bringing them into play. So I haven't added any special effects to this chapter yet. I've only got it lined up and synced. Now that I have everything lined up in sync, I've got to add the special effects such as like HLS to certain areas. I probably should have put HLS in here to begin with so that I could zoom in and zoom out, but what I might do is just create one big subsequence of all of this and then cut that subsequence up to add HLS, which is basically the color balance. That's how I show you how to take the lighting out from behind the image, and then we create a cropped area to highlight the area that we want to identify, and then taking in the zoom effect. So those are different things that I'll go through and add to this chapter now. Hey, that's it for this video, but not for the rest of the information on this channel. Here are some more videos to help you keep learning. Click that subscribe button and tap that notification bell for more Doodly tips and tricks. Let's make a deal. You keep watching the videos and I'll keep creating the content.